So just as a little review where we left off, we were talking about, I was talking about finance.
Estaba hablando ayer de financiación.
Just as a little review, so I mentioned there are these three sources of film finance.
Es una pequeño resumen, repaso, gracias. Hablaba de tres formas de financiación principales.
The first is equity investment, which is a kind of finance you see across many different industries, the idea of finding an investor to put money into your project. I mentioned the idea of selling distribution rights, which is really the only value in a film or a project lies in the fact, the only commercial value lies in the fact that we can ask people to pay money to come see what we've made. In the case of a theatrical motion picture, the kind of movie that you would see in the cinema, we make that arrangement by selling the distribution rights to a project. We do that territory by territory around the world. But in order for me as a producer to, well, let me just step back. The logical time for a distributor to buy the distribution rights is going to be, as we say, on a completed film basis, once the film is finished. Then they can see the film, they can see if it's any good. If I'm trying to sell the UK distribution rights to a UK distributor, that distributor can look at the finished film, see if it's any good, think about will UK audiences, want to come see that movie. So the logical time for me to sell the distribution rights, the logical time for a distributor to buy the distribution rights is at the end of this process on a completed film basis. But what that doesn't help me, the producer, when I'm up here in the financing phase. So the logical time for them to buy the rights is down here. But I'm up here trying to raise the money to cover the cost of production. What I'm going to try to do is to sell the distribution rights before the film is made. And we call that doing a pre-sale. I'm going to try to pre-sell the distribution rights.
Básicamente está recordando algo que ya comentó ayer, que es la precompra de los derechos de distribución, territorio por territorio, recordando algo que decía, y es que, bueno, lo lógico, digamos, el momento normal, el momento lógico para hacer esto, para que un distribuidor supiera si quiere comprar o no un proyecto, sería cuando el proyecto está terminado. En tanto en cuanto es un mecanismo de financiación de un proyecto, lo que se hace realmente es crear un proyecto lo suficientemente atractivo como para que el distribuidor quiera precomprar los derechos sobre proyecto, aunque la película no esté terminada o no esté hecha.
And this is where these package elements that we talked about yesterday are so important. If I have a notable director, the people all over the world, if it's, Wes Anderson, there are people all over the world want to go see a Wes Anderson movie or a Martin Scorsese movie or a Steven Spielberg movie or a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. That's going to possibly trigger pre-sales because those distributors in various territories, they know that audiences in their territory want to come see a movie directed by that person or cast. And that's where, yes, if you have Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone in a movie, that'll trigger a pre-sale because these distributors know that there are audiences all over the world in their territories that want to come see a movie with these name elements.
Entonces, lógicamente, lo que son, digamos, los disparadores lógicos de este tipo de precompras son los elementos que son reconocibles, como pueden ser directores muy conocidos, que sean lo suficientemente llamativos para un distribuidor como para hacer que esté interesado en la precompra de los derechos o parte del casting que sea muy reconocible y que sea muy atractiva a nivel comercial y que pueda generar el hype suficiente como para hacer que un distribuidor decida precomprar los derechos.
And this is what I might have mentioned this yesterday if I repeating, but we had two groups. I forget what I said to who. But in putting together a package, for example, if you cast, and I use this example all the time, whether I'm in Spain or not, but if you cast Penelope Cruz as the lead actress in your movie, so what do? You get an Academy Award-winning actress, one of the most beautiful women in the world, and you're probably getting a Spanish pre-sale, because there are a lot of people in Spain, they want to see what's Penelope up to, what's her latest movie like. And you may also get a Latin American pre-sale. So the idea when we put together these packages, we're thinking about where is this money going to come from? And the role of a cast member, an actor, you would not be the first producer in the history of the film industry to cast an actor, not just for creative reasons, but also for financial reasons.
Vale, entonces comenta que, bueno, es un ejemplo que dice que ponen, no, independientemente de que esté hablando en España o fuera de España, menciona, por ejemplo, a Penélope Cruz, ¿no? Bueno, Penélope Cruz, si forma parte del reparto de la película, probablemente va a ser un elemento que va a potenciar una precompra de derechos en el territorio español por ser una actriz española, pero además va probablemente a potenciar la precompra de derechos en otros territorios. En ese sentido, añade que probablemente no sería el caso del primer productor que en un momento determinado organiza un casting no solamente por criterios de calidad de los actores y de la posible interpretación, sino incluso un casting como un elemento de marketing, como un casting montado para que beneficie la precompra de los derechos.
So pre-sales are hard. It's a hard thing to pull off, but it is a possible source of film finance. The last category, possible source of film finance I mentioned is this umbrella term called soft money. I mentioned production incentives, the idea that there are governments around the world that will give producers money, a percentage of what producers spend in production finance in that jurisdiction, in that country or that state. The government will give the producer money, a percentage of that money back. So that's a huge incentive for me as a producer to figure out how can I shoot my movie, let's say, in the state of Georgia in the United States, which has a very generous production incentive program. They'll give me up to between 30 and 40% of what I spend in the state of Georgia. So if I'm getting 30% from the state and I have a $10 million movie, I don't have to raise $10 million. I only have to raise $7 million because I'm getting $3 million from the state, which is why Black Panther shot in Georgia.
Y por último, algo que comentó también ayer, que es este término que ellos llaman soft money, que viene a ser lo que nosotros entendemos aquí en España como incentivos a la producción. Pueden ser, normalmente en nuestro caso son incentivos que tienen que ver con políticas o bien de desgravación o bien políticas de ayuda a la producción, dinero público que llega en forma de ayudas o en forma de subvenciones. Él comenta el caso del estado de Georgia, allí en Estados Unidos, donde hay unos, digamos, unas ventajas fiscales, unos incentivos que rondan entre el 30 y el 40%, de tal manera que si tú tienes unos incentivos de entre el 30 y el 40% y tienes que conseguir juntar, pongamos por caso, 10 millones de dólares, no tienes que juntar 10 millones, no tienes que conseguir 7, porque realmente puedes estar beneficiándote de hasta, por ejemplo, un 30% de ayuda, de financiación.
And there are other forms of soft money. There are things like subsidies, where I mentioned, there are governments around the world that they just give money to their local film and television industry. You can get a grant from a foundation or a nonprofit. You see a lot of that type of activity in the world of documentary filmmaking. Crowdfunding is a kind of soft money, and we see people raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, euros, etc., via crowdfunding, and that's not an investment. You don't have to give that money back. And there are other forms of soft money, but these are the three major sources of film finance.
Vale, comenta, pues eso lo que decíamos, hay otras formas, hay formas distintas dependiendo de los diferentes países. Habla de ayudas a nivel internacional, lo que en España conocemos como subvenciones o con el término ayudas. También hay otros países donde hay formas de incentivos que tienen que ver con digamos, leyes de mecenazgo, ¿vale? Y comenta por último también un tema que conocéis bien, que es el asunto del crowdfunding, que permite financiar, además sin tener que dar un retorno de inversión. Entonces, bueno, ha sido un mecanismo de financiación que se ha utilizado varias veces.
So the discussion around film finance can get much more detailed and extensive, but I'm going to leave it at this. But I think this is a good moment. I don't know if anyone has any questions about film finance or really anything that I've been talking about so far.
Vale, el asunto de la financiación daría para bastante más, evidentemente, pero bueno, como es un recordatorio de lo que vio ayer, lo va a dejar ahí. Y quiere saber si hay alguien que tenga alguna pregunta que hacer con respecto a temas de financiación o en líneas generales si hay alguien que quiera hacer alguna pregunta de lo que se ha visto hasta ahora. ¿Alguna pregunta? ¿Algo que le queráis preguntar a Neal? No seáis tímidos.
So you're ready for the exam now?
¿No? ¿Todo el mundo lo tiene todo claro?
Okay.
Lo va a preguntar ahora.
Okay, so we'll move on. I'm going to speak very little about production because obviously when it comes to production, I think this is probably in whatever classes you're taking that are related to film, you're probably learning, some basics in terms of actual production. So I don't have the time and the place to really do that right here, right now. But what I would like to address just briefly in terms of production is to talk about the time frames, the amount of time involved in making a feature film on an industry professional level.
Vale, no va a profundizar mucho en conceptos de producción porque además entiende que primero porque no hay tiempo y segundo porque todos, más o menos casi todos los cursos que estáis aquí tenéis un conocimiento relativamente, por lo menos a nivel básico, de lo que es la producción audiovisual, pero digamos que sí quiere mencionar algunas cosas, hablar con respecto a lo que sería, digamos, el marco temporal, el tiempo que lleva una producción audiovisual, desarrollar una producción en términos de tiempo.
So it all, in terms of how much time it takes to make a project, and I'm talking now about a feature film that is hopefully somewhat well financed. The initial determination is going to come from the shooting schedule. And if you remember yesterday, I was talking about the role of the line producer. And the line producer is going to come in when it's time to create the budget. Well, in order to make a budget, the first thing that the line producer will do is come up with a shooting schedule, i.e. figure out how many days is it going to take to shoot this script.
Vale, hablando en términos de marco de tiempo, de calendario de tiempo, de cuánto tiempo nos lleva a producir un producto audiovisual, recuerda algo que ya comentó ayer, que es esa figura del line producer que nosotros asimilábamos aquí en España al jefe de producción y que es el responsable de la elaboración del plan de rodaje y también de la elaboración, supervisión del presupuesto. Y realmente todo tiene que comenzar con la organización del plan de rodaje. La pregunta sería realmente cuánto tiempo, cuántos días, semanas nos lleva el rodaje de esta producción.
So if we're talking about a feature film that has a decent amount of money behind it, just for our purposes, it's not unusual to think about shooting a project like that in 40 days. And if you're shooting 5-day weeks, meaning everyone has the weekend off, Saturday and Sunday off, that translates into 8 weeks of shooting. So let's just use that as an example. In the digital realm, we can move a little faster. You usually use less lights, the equipment is a little lighter and more mobile, but I'd like to just, for illustration, for an example, say that we're talking about a 40-day shoot.
Vale, entonces si estamos hablando de un rodaje más o menos estándar, de una producción más o menos estándar con una cantidad decente de dinero de soporte financiero, podríamos estar hablando, evidentemente los casos son muy distintos, pero podríamos estar hablando de que aproximadamente un rodaje se podría llevar aproximadamente 40 días, teniendo en cuenta que son días hábiles, es decir, que todo el mundo descansa los fines de semana. Podríamos estar hablando, como normalmente se hace en un plan de rodaje por semanas, de un rodaje de alrededor de 8 semanas. Matiza Neal que evidentemente, en tanto en cuanto se puede trabajar con tecnología digital, la tecnología digital hace las cosas más rápidas en términos de tiempo, pero más o menos algo como una cantidad media podrían ser unas 8 semanas.
So if we are assuming a 40-day shoot, now we're going to work backwards and we're going to think about how much time we are going to allocate for what we call pre-production, the period of time during which we're going to organize and plan everything, everyone, every place, every piece of equipment, everything that we're going to need on every day of the shoot. We're going to plan that. We're going to organize it during a pre-production period. And a little bit of a kind of rule of thumb is that you want to allocate as much, at least, as much time for pre-production as the amount of time that you're allocating for the shoot. So in a situation like this, if I'm going to be shooting for 40 days, which is 8 weeks, I think I want to have at least an 8-week pre-production period.
Vale, entonces sobre este modelo de un proyecto de 40 días asimilados a 8 semanas, la cuestión es cuánto tiempo necesitamos para una preproducción estándar o normal y digamos que la regla básica que él señala es que vamos a necesitar tanto tiempo de preproducción, al menos tanto tiempo de preproducción como tiempo de producción. Tenemos, por tanto, para una película de 8 semanas, 40 días, tendríamos 40 días de preproducción.
Do not listen to these people who say, you don't need so much pre-production time. You can do it in less time. You'll save money. You know, do it in 6 weeks. No, that's, as the cliche goes, that's being penny wise and pound foolish. You need those 2 extra weeks. You want to make sure that everything is planned properly so that when you do start shooting, everything is organized, everything is planned, and you can move efficiently through your shooting schedule. You don't want to skimp on money thinking, oh, 2 weeks less pre-production, I can save some money. No, because you'll wind up thanking yourself that you had enough time to plan everything out, because when you start shooting, you need to move efficiently. You need to do everything that you've been scheduled to do on one day. You need to do that in one day. There's no, oh, I'll come back and do it tomorrow, because tomorrow you have another 4 or 5 pages to shoot. So you have to keep moving. So pre-production time is very, very valuable.
Vale, y lo que, resumiéndolo, lo que hace es preveniros de aquellas personas que os digan, bueno, no es necesario tanto tiempo de preproducción, no reserves 8 semanas de preproducción porque va a ser suficiente, por ejemplo, con 6. Realmente lo que hace es lanzaros el mensaje de que la preproducción es tan importante como que va a permitir que cualquier cosa que sea necesaria para que posteriormente funcione bien esté lógicamente organizada, ¿no? Está dando un dato también interesante que es una media, asimilando aproximadamente una media de entre 4 y 5 páginas de rodaje por día. Eso supone muchas páginas para sacar al día y por tanto de ahí el mensaje que él lanza de la importancia de la preproducción y de dedicar ese tiempo, de no ahorrar ese tiempo de la preproducción.
So once we finish filming, we're going to move into post-production. And the amount of time that we allocate for post-production is going to be anchored by the amount of time we give the editor to do his or her job.
Y cuando se termina el rodaje, viene el momento de la postproducción. La cantidad de tiempo que dedicamos a la postproducción viene determinada por la pregunta ¿cuánto tiempo le vamos a dar al montador para que monte el proyecto?
So on a film of this scope, of this size, where we have an 8-week, 40-day shoot, an 8-week pre-production period, you could pretty much assume that we're going to give the editor around 16 weeks for them to do their job.
En un planteamiento tipo de este que estamos hablando, 8 semanas de preproducción, 8 semanas de producción, el modelo sería darle 16 semanas a la postproducción, 16 semanas al montaje.
So the first thing that an editor does is select, as we say, select takes. So you're probably aware, I hope you're aware, that when we make a movie, when we shoot, the director shoots in takes, right? So the director will say, action, and whatever happens, happens. We're filming. The director yells, cut. End. Okay, we're going to do it again. Take number 2. So that's how we shoot. There'll be multiple takes of each camera setup, etc. The first thing that the editor does is select which take is going to go into the film, right? So they might have 8 takes. We shot this one camera setup 8 different times. One of them is going to go into the film. So that's the first task of the editor, is to select takes, put all the selected takes together into what we refer to as an assembly.
Vale, lo que comenta es muy resumido porque es un proceso que conocéis. Es que la primera tarea del montador es la selección de tomas válidas en base a la información que le llega a la sala de montaje, y con esa selección de tomas válidas haría, digamos, lo que nosotros llamamos aquí, él se ha referido a ello como ensamblaje, lo que nosotros llamaríamos aquí el premontaje de imagen.
Now the director comes into the editing room and works with the editor to come up with the first cut of the movie. And very often we refer to the first cut as the director's cut. We're going to screen that cut. So now the producer's there, the director's there, the editor and the editing staff is there, and we're all looking at the first cut, and we're going to have some notes, we're going to have some comments, you know, this isn't working, or fix that, or didn't understand what was happening, whatever. We're then going to send the editor, very often with the director, back to the editing room for more cutting.
Entonces, en el momento de la incorporación del director a la sala de montaje, el director trabaja en lo que sería el primer corte, la primera versión, lo que podríamos llamar la versión del director de montaje. Esa versión del director es la que se visiona, se toman notas por parte de producción y se da un feedback y se vuelve a mandar a la sala de montaje con esas notas y con los cambios que se sugieren.
The editor keeps cutting, and now there's a new cut. And now we're going to screen the new cut. And there's the producers and the director, the editor. We look at the film, and we're going to have more notes.
Entonces,
send the editor back to the editing room for more cutting. And this is going to go on, cut after cut, until we get to what we call the fine cut, where now we're pretty close. And one last screening of the fine cut. A few more comments. The editor does a few more some more editing, a few more cuts, and now the picture is locked. No more cutting. We have a locked picture. The amount of time that I'm talking about, this usually takes 16 weeks to go from assembly, the start of the assembly, to a locked picture. We're saying here 16 weeks.
Entonces, lo que comentaba es que es un proceso que además se asimila a lo que ayer comentó sobre el desarrollo de guión, que es un ida y vuelta entre las distintas versiones de montaje y el feedback de producción, volviendo a la sala de montaje para hacer remontajes de lo que ya estaba montado, hasta que se consigue un corte final, lo que él llama un corte final. Ese es el producto que se ve, hay un feedback de producción al final y, digamos, en este proceso que ha descrito, pues con esta medida tipo que estamos hablando, sería un proceso de unas 16 semanas desde el primer montaje, desde aquel premontaje del que hablaba, hasta el corte final.
So, once the picture is locked, Now, there's a whole bunch of other post-production that can only happen once the picture is locked. For example, this is where the sound editors are going to come in and create soundtracks, for example, with sound effects. Up until this point, the editor has been using kind of temporary sound effects. But it's only once the picture is locked that a sound editor can go in and now build a soundtrack and put sound effects into a soundtrack that correspond to the picture, knowing that the picture isn't going to move around. It's no more cutting. So they're able to place the sound effects in the position that will correspond with the finished film. So it's sound effects. This is where a composer could come in and create the music for the film. Before this moment, maybe again like the sound effects, the editor has been using temporary music just for all those cuts for the, the director's cut while they're cutting. But now that the picture is locked, now the composer can come in, sit with the director, and figure out where are all the pieces of music that have to go into the film. They're called music cues. The director will say, oh yeah, see what's happening in this scene? This is where I need a romantic theme piece of music to start. And oh, see, they're getting closer, they're closer, oh, they're gonna kiss now. I need the piece to build to a climax, no pun intended. And so the composer can leave this session with the director with a whole list of pieces of music we call the music cues. The composer can now go write that music knowing that the picture isn't going to move around anymore because the picture is locked. So there are all these different things that that have to happen in terms of post-production that can only happen once the picture is locked. Other things like cutting in visual effects, that maybe visual effects houses or different places have been creating. We're going to correct the color. All of this is going to happen after the picture is locked. We call this period, this activity, either final post-production or finishing post-production. And on a picture of this size, we probably would allocate around 8 weeks to finish all of this post-production.
Entonces, Neal nos estaba hablando de un proceso de otras 8 semanas adicionales, de procesos de postproducción que tienen lugar solo y exclusivamente una vez que el corte de imagen ha terminado, es decir, una vez que tenemos la imagen final. Procesos que tienen que ver, por ejemplo, con la postproducción de sonido. Ya sabemos que todo el montaje de sonido final solo puede ocurrir una vez que la imagen ya no se va a volver a remontar. Ha mencionado el caso de los especiales de sonido, ha mencionado el caso también de la música, extendiéndose sobre ello. Se ha podido trabajar con música de referencia antes, pero realmente cuando los músicos van realmente a ponerse a trabajar y a componer y a escribir es cuando la imagen ya está terminada para crear, digamos, el ambiente y el mood necesario para esas imágenes, que ya sabemos que van en ese tiempo y en esa medida. Ha hablado de la incorporación de efectos visuales, de la corrección de color, un proceso final de postproducción que puede añadir otras 8 semanas adicionales.
And for the graphic, graphic art students? Are there any graphic art people here? This is where we would create the title sequences. So there are always 2 title sequences in every film. There's the main title sequence, always used to happen at the beginning of the film. Now, not always at the beginning, sometimes at the end. But someone usually has to design that title sequence. If you think about James Bond movies, they're very, very famous title sequences, always. And then there's a second title sequence which always happens at the very, very end of the film, where all the cast, all the crew, everybody who worked on the film's names is in the credit sequence. We call that the end title sequence, which very often we've referred to as a crawl, because the names, if you think about it, they're crawling up the screen. So that's the time where our graphic designer will come in and work on a project.
Entonces, comentando también acerca de la gente que se dedica a la parte de diseño gráfico. Ese es el momento en el que entran los diseñadores que trabajan en las secuencias de títulos que antiguamente iban al principio de las películas, que esto ya no ocurre y ahora normalmente casi todo va al final. Menciona también, no solamente, bueno, menciona películas que históricamente han sido muy reconocidas por sus secuencias de títulos y que se han convertido en piezas icónicas, y menciona también la participación de los diseñadores gráficos en la parte final, en lo que sería, digamos, el crawl, el rodillo, los títulos finales donde se acredita en ese rodillo, en ese crawl, todos los puestos y todas las personas que han trabajado en el proyecto.
So you can see this adds up to a total of 24 weeks for a post-production period. That's 6 months. It's a long time. And that's why if you see a film unit on the shooting on the street, and maybe you go over to one of the crew members and you say, hey, when is this movie coming out? They say, I don't know, sometime next year. You can see how long it takes to make a film. And this just now, we're ready to deliver the film to the marketing department, to the distribution department, and they have work to do to get the film ready to come into the marketplace and for distribution.
Es un proceso muy largo, de aproximadamente 24 semanas en global de postproducción, y por eso, bueno, cuando vemos a un equipo de rodaje en la calle y preguntamos, oye, ¿cuándo vamos a ver esta película que estáis rodando? Y nos dicen, en algún momento a lo largo del año que viene, y decimos, bueno, ¿cómo es posible que lo vayamos a ver en algún momento a lo largo del año que viene? Nos da una idea de la dimensión de lo largos que son los procesos de producción. Es en ese momento en el que el proyecto está terminado y realmente se pone en marcha el proceso de marketing y de distribución.
In the world of documentary filmmaking, those editors, they want to start with 30 weeks to cut because there's no script. In essence, they are writing the film with the shot material. They're writing the film in the editing room. So that's just for starters. Very often it goes longer, but in a documentary editor, they want to start with 30 weeks in order to cut a movie. And I can tell you, the last project I made was a documentary, and it was the first and only so far documentary that I've produced. And when I first started to speak with editors, to interview editors, and I said, I had no idea. I'd never made a documentary before. I didn't know what I was doing. And I said, so how much time, do you need? And they said, well, 30 weeks. And my mouth dropped open because they don't get paid less than any other type of editor. So it's a major piece of the budget is going to an editor on a documentary, and they need that time.
En el caso de los documentales hace una asimilación muy interesante, y es que realmente lo que ocurre en la sala de montaje en un documental viene a ser algo asimilable a la escritura del guión. En un documental el guión se está reescribiendo en la sala de montaje. Con lo cual, un montador de un documental puede estar necesitando alrededor de 30 semanas para su proceso frente a las 24 que había comentado él en una película de ficción. Él recuerda que ayer os comentó que uno de los últimos proyectos que produjo fue precisamente un documental, y que estuvo hablando con el montador y le dijo, bueno, ¿cuánto tiempo necesitas? Pues necesito 30 semanas. Esas 30 semanas son una parte importante del presupuesto en este caso.
Just on that note, so when I made this documentary, if you think about why they need all this time, we delivered around 125 hours of material to the editor. So if you just think that if they're working a 40-hour week, it's going to take that editor 3 weeks just to look at the material, for starters. That's 3 weeks just looking. And then they're going to start to work with the material. So you can get an idea of how long they need.
Para que nos podamos hacer una idea de la gestión del tiempo, En este último documental que él produjo, la cantidad de material bruto que mandaron a montaje eran 125 horas de material en una, digamos, en una semana de trabajo de 40 horas. Supone que solamente el visionado del material, solamente ver el material y conocerlo, son 3 semanas de trabajo. Esto nos da una idea de cuál es la dimensión de los tiempos.
So once we finish post-production, we have a finished product that we can now bring to the marketplace, and we can make arrangements for audiences to see what we've made. So when I talk about marketing and distribution, I like to do it by posing questions. The answers to the questions are what could serve as the basis for a marketing plan, for a distribution plan.
Comenta que en el momento en el que, lo que ya comentaba antes, en el momento que el proyecto está terminado es cuando el proyecto entra en la fase de marketing y distribución, porque lo van a sacar al mercado, y es él afronta ese proceso de marketing y distribución a base de preguntas. Esas preguntas son las que nos van a dar las pistas acerca de cómo puede ser el marketing y la distribución del proyecto.
And I would just encourage you to realize that even though the marketing and distribution of a project happens all the way, at the end of this process, the concepts, the strategies involved with marketing and distribution are such that as a producer, you want to begin to engage with them from the very, very, very beginning of this process. It's not like you don't think about the audience only at the end of this whole process. You want to begin to think about who is the audience, for example, for your project. When you first come up with an idea, that's something that you want to talk with your screenwriter about. That's something that you want to speak with your director about before the movie's made, because you want to make sure you get the movie that you conceived of.
Señala algo que es importante, y es que, aunque evidentemente las estrategias de marketing y de distribución son algo que asociamos a los procesos finales, los conceptos y esas estrategias están involucradas en el desarrollo del proyecto desde el principio, es decir, desde que se trabaja con el guionista, desde que se trabaja con el director, se está uno preguntando desde el punto de vista de productor cuál es el público potencial que tiene este proyecto, quién es quien va a ver este proyecto. Realmente uno está involucrado en cuestiones que tienen que ver con marketing desde el propio inicio del proyecto.
For example, you could make a movie about a teenager that is for a teenage audience, right? Think about if you know Fault in Our Stars, anyone? It's a movie about teenagers, very much for a teenage audience and others. Perks of Being a Wallflower, anyone know that movie? It's about teenagers, very much for teenage audience. But you can also make a movie about a teenager that is not for teenagers, that deal with adult themes. So if anyone knows the movie Precious, does anyone know the movie Precious? It's a great film. It's really worth seeing if you've never seen it. I think you're all old enough. But that's a film about a teenager, but she's dealing with very adult issues. She's obese. She is living in a very abusive household, a very abusive family. She's struggling with, low income, being disadvantaged, living in the inner city, etc. These are very adult themes. Precious is about a 16-year-old, but it's not for a 16-year-old audience. So that's just an example of, you want to be conscious of, the movie that you want, the project that you want to go make, and who is the audience, and you want to engage with that before the movie's made, not just wind up with a film and you say, oh, that's not what I thought we were going to make here, now what do I do with it?
Señala que hay que tener en cuenta al público desde el principio. Puede haber casos de películas de adolescentes, películas que tratan la temática adolescente y que puedan ser para un público adolescente. E igual puede haber películas de temática adolescente, pero que realmente sean para un público adulto. Ha señalado una película titulada Precious, que está protagonizada por personajes que son adolescentes o que rondan los 16 años, pero que realmente está tratando temas que tienen que ver con problemas o con preocupaciones adultas. Entonces, una vez más, el mensaje es: tenemos que tener en cuenta cuando estamos desarrollando el proyecto cuál es la audiencia, cuál es el público para el que lo desarrollamos.
So the first question any marketer needs to ask, it doesn't matter if film, television, any type of marketer, the first question one must ask is what? What is my product? You have to know your product before you can even begin to think about how you're going to sell it.
La primera pregunta que tiene que hacer alguien que está involucrado en marketing es: ¿cuál es mi producto? ¿Qué es mi producto? Y lo siguiente, el saber qué es mi producto me va a permitir saber cómo venderlo.
So in order to answer this question, we can think of various kind of aspects of a project. So for example, we can identify what distribution platform this project has been created to be seen on first and foremost, primarily.
Por ejemplo, saber para qué plataforma de distribución a priori se está creando ese proyecto. Se puede tener una idea a priori de que un proyecto es para una determinada vía o plataforma de distribución.
So is it a theatrical motion picture, a film designed to be seen first and foremost in cinemas?
¿Es una película, por ejemplo, originalmente a priori pensada para estrenar en cines?
Or is it a television piece? It was designed to be broadcast on television.
¿O es una película pensada para televisión?
Or maybe it's a piece of new media content designed to be seen put on the internet.
¿O es un trabajo audiovisual, un contenido audiovisual para nuevas plataformas, lo que ahora llamamos nuevas plataformas, o para distribución en internet?
So we're going to identify first, what distribution platform has this project been designed to be seen on primarily, first and foremost?
A priori hay que saber para qué vía o plataforma de distribución está pensado este proyecto.
So we can identify next the genre of the film. I mentioned this yesterday. So genre is a way that we can categorize different types of films. Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it an action picture? Is it a science fiction or fantasy film? Is it a children's movie? Is it a musical? What genre is the project?
Así que una de las cosas que tenemos que hacer es identificar el género. Ha mencionado varios. El género determina también en esta medida cómo se puede distribuir el proyecto.
We can now give a little nod to the story, and we can do that by using a log line. I think I very quickly mentioned log lines at the end of yesterday's session. A log line is a very handy tool that we have in the film and television industry. A log line is a one-sentence summary of the story of the film.
Vamos a dar una información, también en términos de marketing estamos hablando ahora, vamos a dar una información básica sobre la historia de la película, y esa información básica está incluida en lo que ya comentó ayer, el logline de la película, esa frase, una frase que nos resume el núcleo, la parte principal de la historia.
So an example of a logline, maybe you know this movie, maybe you don't. A young, naive Kansas farm girl is swept up in a tornado and transported to a fantastic land where, with the help of new friends, she must overcome enemies and obstacles in her attempt to get back home.
Os ha dado un logline sobre una chica muy joven y muy infantil granjera de Kansas que se ve envuelta en un tornado y que ese tornado la traslada a otra dimensión, y en esa otra dimensión, con la ayuda de nuevos amigos, tiene que resolver el problema que sea para volver a su hogar.
Do you know that movie? What movie? Sorry? The Wizard of Oz. I'm so glad you know that movie. I feel like I'm with friends now. So that's an example of a log line. Yes, that's the story of the Wizard of Oz in one sentence. And log lines are very important to us as producers. There are numerous times we want to be able to tell the story of our projects just one sentence. So now, in terms of answering this what question, we're going to look to the world of advertising, and if there are any marketers in the room, you may know what I mean when I say USP. Anyone? Anyone know what USP stands for?
Está preguntando si hay alguien relacionado, vinculado con el marketing en la sala, y si es así, probablemente sabrá a lo que se refiere con las siglas USP.
Well, you're going to find out now.
Lo vais a averiguar ahora.
Become marketers. It stands for unique selling point. Unique selling point. You want to look at your product, and you want to think about what is special about my product that makes it stand out from all the other competing products. So forget film and television for a moment. Think about if you're like Procter & Gamble, one of these big multinational corporations that makes household goods, etc. And you've come up with a new kind of toothpaste. And this new toothpaste has as its active ingredient the mouthwash Listerine. Do you have Listerine here? Yeah? Did anyone use it this morning? I hope so. Anyway, so you have a new product. So it's toothpaste with now mouthwash. That's going to be a very, very unique selling point for that toothpaste. You're going to want every consumer who buys toothpaste, which hopefully is almost everybody, to know when they go to the pharmacia or wherever, the grocery, wherever you buy toothpaste here in Spain, you want them to know that when they look at all the different toothpaste, it's like, oh, that's the one with the Listerine. That's going to be a very strong, unique selling point for that toothpaste.
Desde el punto de vista de marketing, de lo que habla es de, digamos, cuál es el elemento que hace único mi producto, qué es lo que hace que mi producto sea especial para que en términos publicitarios y de marketing lo pueda diferenciar del resto de los productos que están en el mercado. Ha puesto un escenario teórico de una pasta de dientes que incorpora un producto nuevo que ayuda al cuidado de los dientes y que, digamos, se pone el acento en señalar ese producto, que es lo que hace que la persona que lo vaya a comprar pueda identificarlo y sea más fácil que quiera ese producto en concreto. Esa pregunta de qué hace mi producto especial.
So what you need to do is you're going to want to look at your projects very carefully and determine what's the unique selling point or points, you can have more than one, about my project. And very often, as we established yesterday, one of the strongest motivators to get people to buy tickets, for example, for a theatrical motion picture, it very often is cast. It's not always, but very often. So very often cast, it becomes a unique selling point or points.
Os anima a que seáis capaces de identificar ese punto que hace el producto único. Puede ser más de uno, puede haber más de un elemento que haga atractivo mi producto, y como ayer comentaba, uno de los elementos, digamos, más motivadores o que pueden ser más motivadores para que la gente vea un contenido audiovisual es el cast, es el reparto. Entonces, trabajar en ese reparto como un elemento de venta, un elemento que hace único el proyecto.
So, just as an example, do people know the film here, the King's Speech? Yeah? Can I use that as an example? Okay. So, because I could always go to La La Land, but let's stay away from La La Land right now. We love La La Land. So the King's Speech, it was a theatrical motion picture, right? That was the distribution platform. It was a historical drama. Logline, the future King of England must overcome a speech impediment with the help of a special tutor before he can assume the throne. I'll let you go with that, and then I'll come back to the
Okay. El discurso del rey, una película de ficción para distribución en plataforma, coproducida por plataforma, con un logline que podría ser más o menos resumido o traducido de lo que él ha dicho, es que el futuro rey de Inglaterra tiene que sobrepasar los problemas que tiene para un discurso en público con la ayuda de un especialista.
So what would you say, it's easier looking back, because the King's Speech was several years ago now, what would you say would be the unique selling point, or one of the strongest unique selling points for the King's Speech?
Entonces, ahora mirándolo con perspectiva es más fácil, porque es una película de hace unos años, y os pregunta cuáles son los puntos de venta únicos, los puntos que hacen únicos esta película, El discurso del rey. Os pregunta él. ¿Alguna aportación?
Specifically, I think so, Colin Firth, the actor who played the king in the King's Speech. You know, Colin Firth was he was a movie star before he made the King's Speech. He's a bigger movie star now that he won the Academy Award for that performance. And if you haven't seen the film, you know, it's a magnificent performance. He deserves that award. But he was a movie star before he made the film. Very popular with the ladies, very popular with women. You know, he first broke out in, there was a BBC production of Pride and Prejudice. And Colin Firth played Mr. Darcy. And there was a famous scene in that production. I'm sure it was broadcast here. But when it was broadcast in England, and I was living there at the time, so I could see and hear it, and I remember it very well because it was my production of The Politician's Wife, which beat out Pride and Prejudice for the BAFTA that year. They were very upset. But there's a famous moment in that film, that television film, where Colin Firth comes out of a lake wearing a white shirt. So now it's a wet white shirt. And I can tell you, at that moment in time, there were millions of women across England who all just fell in love with Colin Firth. And then he sealed the deal. If you remember, he played another character named Darcy in Bridget Jones' Diary. Well, there were 3 films, I think. So he was pretty much a movie star before he made this movie, very popular with women.
Se ha comentado como valor del discurso del rey, el protagonista, Colin Firth, y ha comentado él que no era una estrella antes de protagonizar esta película, que fue una estrella realmente a partir de protagonizar esta película y del premio que obtuvo de la Academia. Ha comentado que sí era un actor, una figura muy popular entre el público femenino, pero no una estrella hasta que realmente hizo esta película.
And you can have more than one unique selling point. So on that film, Geoffrey Rush had already won the Academy Award. So you had Academy Award winner Geoffrey Rush. Helena Bonham Carter. People are endlessly fascinated. She's a good actress, but people are fascinated with Helena Bonham Carter. So you can have more than one unique selling point, but you want to look at your projects and be able to identify what's the unique selling point. What are the unique selling points about my project? Because they're going to be very crucial to selling the project. So the next question that one asks now is who? Who is the audience for this movie? Who is, as we refer to as the target audience?
La siguiente pregunta, bueno, después de añadir algún comentario con respecto al cast y a Helena Bonham Carter, por ejemplo, puede ser otro ejemplo que mencionaba de, bueno, puedo tener más de un elemento, en este caso más de un protagonista o más de un personaje, más de un actor, más de un miembro del cast que sea un punto de venta. La siguiente pregunta es ¿quién es el público potencial que va a consumir este producto?
So we want to identify who are the people that are going to be most enthusiastic about coming to see this film. Who are these people that the first weekend, they cannot wait to come see this movie? These are the people that we really made the project for. Who are these people? Because you can really think about literally a target, like you're going to the archery range with your bow and arrow. We need to identify the bullseye. We need to start somewhere. We're going to start with the people who are going to be most enthusiastic about coming to see this project. And once we identify them, and if we can get them into the theaters from the very beginning, then we can think about expanding the audience. But we have to start somewhere. Where we're going to start is with this target audience.
Entonces, asimilando digamos, el público y la estrategia de marketing con la diana, con una diana de disparo con arco, lo que hay que localizar es el target, lo que hay que localizar es cuál es el centro de la diana, y él lo que hace es asimilar el público del primer fin de semana, la gente que no va a ser capaz de esperar más allá del primer fin de semana para ir a ver la película, porque ese es el público para el que se ha hecho la película, para la gente que no puede esperar y va a ir el primer fin de semana. Ese es el target potencial.
So when we talk about large groups of people, and this is a concept very much from the world of advertising, we're going to talk about advertising in just a moment, but when we talk about categorizing large groups of people, we can speak about them in terms of demographics.
Sí, está hablando ahora de la expansión de la gente a la que va dirigido el producto, para hablar de cantidad de gente a la que va dirigido, para saber a cuántos. How much people?
Okay.
How many?
So there are two major demographic groups. What's the way that we differentiate between you and you? What do you think? What are the two big demographic categories? Gender and age. Gender and age. So we can talk about men, we can talk about women. The trans world hasn't exactly come into this conversation yet, soon I'm sure. But then we can talk about age. So we can speak about children, you know, however young you can bring a child to a movie, maybe 4 or 5 years old, up to around maybe a 10-year-old. Then you can talk about that tween group, maybe from 10 to around 14 or 15 years old. And then there's going to be a very, very valuable, very prized demographic group. People between 16 and 22. Advertisers love those people, because if you think about it, not everybody has money, but if people in that age group have money, what are they spending their money on? Non-essential items. It's going to be, you know, the new pair of trainers, the new pair of sneakers, not because this is the only way that they can protect their feet from the weather. It's they're, you know, hip and cool. I got to have the new Nikes or Adidas or whatever. So that's a demographic that's very prized by advertisers, 16 to like 22. Then you could look at kind of 24 to, you know, 36, and then maybe 35 to 45, up to 55 plus, and then beyond from up to 55 and then 55 plus. Don't forget the 55 plusers. They go to the movies too, especially if it stars Judi Dench.
Vale, entonces en términos de conceptos demográficos o de estudio demográfico, habría dos puntos, dos elementos sobre los que trabajar, que sería, digamos, el género masculino, femenino y la edad. La edad se estratifica, evidentemente se crean distintos estratos de edad desde los niños, luego ha mencionado otro grupo de edad que estaría categorizado entre los 16 y los 22 años y digamos que habría que mirar despacio cómo se enfoca la publicidad hacia ellos, porque la gente que está entre los 16 y los 22 años probablemente van a priorizar el poco dinero que tienen en cuestiones que tienen más que ver con su apariencia o con la marca de las zapatillas que usan. Otro grupo de edad que estaría comprendido entre los 24 y los 36 aproximadamente, otro grupo entre los 36 y los 45, otro grupo entre los 45 y los 55, y ha comentado no olvidar al grupo de la gente que está de los 55 hacia arriba que también consumen películas. Y Judi Dench. Eso no me había dado tiempo de... Sorry.
No problem. So what would you say, again, it's easier looking back, for the King's Speech, what would you identify as the target audience for the King's Speech in terms of demographics? If you were the marketing department for the distribution company and you see the film, the finished film for the first time, and you're going to now be responsible for marketing and distributing this movie in several months, who would you identify as the target audience for the King's Speech? Who has an idea?
I think the woman between 30 and 40 years.
I think you're absolutely right. Definitely women. Now, this is not to say that a whole bunch of men didn't go see the King's Speech and really enjoy it. But you have to understand that film and television projects are mass market entertainments. We are trying to move millions of people to come see what we've made. So we're painting with a very broad brush, right? We're not being subtle here. More women than men are going to like this type of film, right? It's a historical costume drama. It's a film about, it's characters. It's about people. It's about a family. Okay, they're the royal family, but they're a family. More women than men are going to like that kind of movie. In the same way that more men than women are going to like movies where people fight, kill each other, there are car explosions and car chases, etc. Which is not to say that a whole lot of women don't go to and enjoy the Fast and Furious movies. But we have to kind of make a distinction here for reasons that I'm going to explain in a couple of minutes, but we have to identify who are the people who are most likely to come out that first weekend. They're going to be the most enthusiastic. And yes, I would say in the case of the King's Speech, definitely women. You know, I've already said, Colin Firth, very popular with the ladies. So definitely women, and it's going to be an older audience. So I would say maybe a little younger than 30. Maybe I would start with around 26 years old, because if you think about the women who were teenagers, and maybe they fell in love with Colin Firth at Pride and Prejudice or Bridget Jones, but now it's 10 years later. So if they were 16 years old when or 17 when they first saw Bridget Jones, now they're 26, 27, 28. But definitely, yes, I would go all the way to 55 plus. There will be people who may remember the events, you know, of the film, which was kind of the Second World War period. They want to come see this movie too. So I would say yes, women, but I would go a little broader. I would say around 26 to 55 plus.
Entonces, en relación al discurso del rey, que habéis comentado que el target potencial serían mujeres de un rango de edad, en principio se ha comentado entre 30 y 40 años, y él ha avanzado sobre eso para ampliar ese espectro, comentando que podrían ser mujeres desde los 26 años, y él lo ampliaría hasta las mayores de 55, mujeres de 26 años que 10 años antes con Bridget Jones o con Orgullo y Prejuicio, digamos que eran adolescentes que se habían fijado en Colin Firth y que pueden ser el público potencial de una película protagonizada por él. De la misma manera que, digamos, hay ciertos clichés que se siguen con respecto a que una película que habla sobre una familia es más potencial, es susceptible de interesar más a las mujeres, de la misma manera que un Fast and Furious es susceptible de interesar más a los hombres, al público masculino.
And Judi Dench.
Y Judi Dench también.
So we can speak about people demographically in other ways. We can speak about them in terms of, we can group together people demographically in terms of ethnic identity, sexual identity, level of education, level of income. Geographically, there are people who live in cities, there are people who live in suburbs, there are people who live in rural communities. So we can talk about people in other ways demographically, and what this leads to is what we refer to, can lead to, is what we refer to as niche audiences. So like a subset of the big audience.
Entonces, bueno, habla de categorías sobre las que podemos estudiar, como es, por ejemplo, el nivel de estudios o, digamos, el lugar donde viven las personas, si son personas que viven en una gran ciudad o que viven en una población pequeña.
Y también que el nombre genérico que se le atribuye a estos son los nichos de audiencia.
So the next question is the operative question. How? How are we going to get these people to buy this product? And as marketers, film and television marketers, we have three buckets of tools that we have at our disposal to use to achieve our objectives.
Entonces, la siguiente pregunta es ¿cómo vamos a hacer para vender este producto? Y desde el punto de vista de personas que trabajan en marketing, tenemos tres cajas de herramientas que nos proveen de herramientas para dar respuesta a esto, a cómo vamos a vender.
So, what are our objectives? There are three objectives of a film or television marketer. The first thing that we want to achieve is what we refer to as title awareness.
Hay tres objetivos que, digamos, que hay que conseguir desde el punto de vista de marketing, y dentro de esos tres objetivos el primero sería, digamos, el ser consciente del título, la presencia o la conciencia sobre el título.
So we have to educate the audience that we have a project coming out. We need to educate them. So if I had said the phrase, you know, the King's Speech to you maybe 8 years ago, before the movie, you would have said, oh, yeah, you know, the British, they all have funny accents depending on which part of the country they're from. But then there are these, like, aristocrats, the posh types, or they all think they're aristocrats, but most of them aren't. But they speak the King's Speech. No. The King's Speech is the name of a movie, and it's coming to a cinema near you soon.
Entonces dice que en relación a esto que comentas sobre, digamos, ser consciente del título, tener conciencia de lo que supone el título, en el caso del discurso del rey, dice que si hubiera hablado del discurso del rey años antes de la película, gracias, se podría pensar que se está hablando acerca de una forma de hablar o de un acento o de cómo hablan los británicos, que la cuestión es hacer consciente al público de que, no, cuando estoy diciendo el discurso del rey, de lo que estoy hablando es del título de la película.
If I had said the word precious to you also like 8, 9 years ago, you might have said, well, certainly in English, you might have said, oh, thank you very much. He thinks I'm precious. No, Precious is the name of a movie, and it's coming to a cinema near you soon. So that's the first objective that we try to achieve, title awareness. We must educate the audience. The second objective, do you have a question? If you have a question, you could ask us. Otherwise, The next thing we need to achieve, we need to get the audience excited. We need to motivate them to come see what we've made. And we call this creating want to see.
Después de este objetivo de ser consciente del título, de la importancia del título, el segundo objetivo, la segunda consecución sería motivar al público, y digamos que esto lo ha llamado... crear el querer verla. Eso es, gracias, crear el querer verla.
And this is getting harder and harder to achieve, considering the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week media bombardment society we live in these days, where we have stuff coming at us all the time. It's getting really, really difficult. Think about what we're trying to do in the case of a cinema, a film in a theatrical motion picture, where we're asking people to get up off their couch, put down their device for a moment, get dressed, come to a cinema, pay, I don't know how much is a ticket in Madrid to go to the movies.
Too much.
Right, how much?
9-10 euros.
9-10 euros. Okay, so if you go with your friend or your family or whatever, and it's expensive. And it's much easier just to stay at home, even with a television project where you do not have to leave your couch. Think about all the choice, the thousands of options that you have now to watch. This is becoming a very hard thing to achieve, but that's what we need to do, because the ultimate objective for the film or television marketer is to get audiences to, in the case of a theatrical motion picture, buy tickets. Or in the case of a television project, watch our television show, not those 1,000 other shows that you have the ability to watch. Watch our show.
El objetivo probablemente más difícil de conseguir, debido a la cantidad de estímulos que recibimos y digamos a la gran competencia que hay. Entonces la cuestión es cómo vamos a conseguir que alguien salga de su cama, se vista, deje el teléfono móvil y esté dispuesto a pagar lo que sea que cueste la entrada, o incluso si estamos hablando de un proyecto para televisión, cómo vamos a ser capaces de que consiga que vea exactamente nuestro proyecto en el canal en el que lo emitimos y no cualquier otro de los miles que hay en la oferta.
So we have, as I said, 3 buckets of tools at our disposal as film and television marketers. The first thing that we're going to use is publicity. Now, I'm aware, language-wise, sometimes people think of publicity in Europe as advertising, but publicity from the American or British point of view, it's the press. We're going to use the press. Publicity being articles that you read in a newspaper or a magazine. You're watching a talk show and there's a movie star talking about their movie. So we call it publicity.
Vale, entonces dentro de esas 3 cajas de herramientas que él habla para conseguir llevar al público a que compre la entrada, el primero es la publicidad, y hace la matización de que tenemos la idea de que en términos anglosajones asimilamos publicidad a anuncios, vamos a decir así, ads, pero en realidad él está hablando de publicidad en términos de prensa, ¿vale? De artículos o de alguna forma de prensa escrita que hace referencia al proyecto.
So we're going to use the press. And again, this is going to show up in print, which it would be newspapers and magazines, media, meaning television and radio, and then online. There are lots of sites online where you can read about movies being made and, actors being interviewed, etc. So what you're going to do now is to strategically create what we refer to as a publicity campaign. And we use that word campaign in the same way that you would refer to, for example, as a political campaign, where the objective is to elect a certain candidate to office, or a military campaign, where the objective is to vanquish the enemy. Here, we're going to use the press, and we're going to create a publicity campaign in order to achieve our objectives.
Vale, entonces, bueno, básicamente de lo que se trata es de crear, bueno, hay distintas formas de eso que él llama publicidad y que asimila a la prensa, que puede ser prensa escrita, periódicos, revistas y también, evidentemente, toda la cantidad de medios escritos online en los cuales es susceptible que aparezcan entrevistas con la gente que ha participado en el proyecto. Y de lo que se trata es de diseñar una campaña de publicidad para llamar la atención sobre ese proyecto utilizando esos medios.
So there are two elements in a publicity campaign. The first thing that you want to pay attention to and identify is what would the content of the publicity be. If I read a newspaper article about your project, who's doing the talking? What is the article about? Who's being interviewed? If I see someone on a talk show, a morning show, talking about your project, who's doing the talking?
Vale.
So it's the content of the publicity that we first have to identify, and it is really very easy. All that you now have to do is connect the dots. What's the content of my publicity going to be? I think I'm going to use my unique selling point or points. If I have the King's Speech opening in the United States, I think I'm bringing Colin Firth to New York, and he's going to do a whole lot of interviews with newspapers, magazines, appear on talk shows, etc. I'm using my unique selling point or points to sell.
Entonces, conectándolo con lo que comentaba antes de los puntos de venta que hacen únicos el proyecto, la cuestión es que hay dos elementos de la campaña de publicidad de la que estaba hablando, y uno de ellos es la creación del contenido de la publicidad. ¿Cómo voy a crear contenido para que sea publicitario? Lo que voy a utilizar para crear ese contenido son los elementos de venta únicos que antes había analizado de mi proyecto.
The other consideration when you're creating a publicity campaign is the placement of the publicity. Okay, which newspapers and magazines do we want Colin Firth doing interviews with? Which television shows do we want him to appear on? Again, very easy. Connect the dots. We're going to have him do interviews in newspapers and magazines that are read by the target audience, these people. So look at women 26 to 55 plus. That's almost half the population. That's a very mainstream audience, right? So we can put Colin Firth in very mainstream newspapers and magazines. He can appear on very mainstream television shows. So I don't know what, the morning shows are here in Spain, but we all have the morning shows that everybody watches, It's a very mainstream audience. So where do we place the publicity? We're going to place it in front of these people. Now, the thing about this demographic is, yes, it's very mainstream, so we can have Colin Firth appear on, I don't know, Good Morning España, or whatever the shows are. But look at this demographic. It's a female demographic. So we also want him to be in women's magazines, like, Vogue España, or Marie Claire, or Elle Magazine. I'm sure there are talk shows for women, during the day for, if there are any women left who actually just stay at home during the day. I don't know if there are. But sure, I don't know that, various shows. In the States, I would say, we want Colin Firth on The View. The View is a talk show, 11 a.m. every Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's hosted by 5 women, Whoopi Goldberg and some others, and their audience are women. That's the kind of show that if they have Colin Firth on as a guest, and Whoopi Goldberg says after the opening of the show, she says, "Don't go anywhere, we're going to a commercial, but when we come back, we have Colin Firth here in the studio." And that studio audience, all those women, and all those women at home across the United States are going, "Ooh, Colin Firth, Colin Firth. I love Colin Firth." So it's very easy. You wind up kind of connecting the dots.
De tal forma que, bueno, a partir de que conocemos los puntos únicos de venta de nuestro proyecto, es fácil también conectar estos puntos en el segundo elemento de la campaña que él plantea, que es el emplazamiento de la publicidad. Antes ha hablado del contenido de la publicidad y ahora habla del emplazamiento. Y es, digamos, localizar los medios en los que tenemos que colocar esta publicidad. En un proyecto que sea completamente, digamos, de grandes masas, muy mainstream, ¿vale? En el caso del discurso del rey se asimilaba a un público potencial de mujeres desde los 26 hasta las mujeres mayores de 55. Hay que localizar, por ejemplo, cuáles son los programas de televisión que potencialmente puede ver ese público para llevar al protagonista a esos programas, o hay que localizar cuáles son potencialmente las revistas de ámbito femenino para el público femenino que pueden ser leídas por ellas para, digamos, situar entrevistas con ese protagonista en ese tipo de publicaciones.
And Judi Dench. So what is the name of the big morning show here? There must be several. No? You don't have a morning show?
We don't watch TV.
No one watches TV. Okay. You watch TV. Don't you watch TV? No TV. Just Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
And Judi Dench. Okay, so the next bucket of tools that we have at our disposal as film and television marketers is advertising. So advertising works very similar to publicity. We're going to create an advertising campaign that also is going to be determined by the content of the advertising as well as the placement. So advertising and publicity are very similar with one major difference. Advertising costs money. When, in terms of publicity, so no one pays anyone, and this might be a little different in certain European territories, but as far as I'm concerned, no one pays Vanity Fair to put Nicole Kidman on the cover of that magazine. That's a mutually beneficial relationship. Vanity Fair knows that they're going to sell a lot of magazines if they have Nicole Kidman on the cover because people are very interested in what's the latest with Nicole Kidman. But Nicole Kidman is not doing that Vanity Fair interview. She is not sitting for those cover photographs unless she has a movie to sell. Advertising, by definition, costs money. If you want to advertise your movie on, I assume you have The Voice. Do you have the TV show The Voice, right? Very popular. 30 seconds of commercial time on The Voice, it costs money. So they're very similar. You see advertising also show up in print, newspapers and magazines, media, radio and television, online. Anyone see any online advertising recently? It's everywhere. But also now advertising exists, we call it outdoor advertising. So if you see billboards, right, or you're on the metro or the side of a bus and it goes, Game of Thrones, it's like, oh, okay, I guess the new season of Game of Thrones is starting. But they work in very similar ways.
Bueno, la diferencia que señala entre la campaña publicitaria de la que ha estado hablando antes y la campaña de anuncios, por así decirlo, la campaña publicitaria de anuncios de la que habla ahora, es que mientras que lo que antes comentaba no tiene, digamos, unos costes en términos de publicidad, es decir, por ejemplo, Vanity Fair va a publicar unas determinadas fotos de Nicole Kidman, no cobrando por esas fotos, sino porque sabe que va a vender más ejemplares de la revista y ella, lógicamente, no va a hacer la sesión de fotos a no ser que tenga un proyecto, una película que estrenar, con lo cual, en la forma de publicidad de la que estaba hablando hace un momento, lo que hay realmente es un beneficio mutuo del medio y de la persona que crea la campaña. En el caso de esta campaña de anuncios, de advertising, digamos que es exactamente lo mismo. De lo que se trata es de crear el contenido y buscar el emplazamiento, pero digamos que estamos hablando de algo que cuesta dinero. Hay que contratar esa publicidad frente a lo que antes se hacía, que no la contrataba, no costaba dinero.
So you're going to conceive of and then implement an advertising campaign. And again, very similar considerations. What would the content of the advertising be? If I see a poster for the King's Speech, what do I see? Easy. I'm going to use my unique selling point or points. I think if I look at a poster for the King's Speech, I think I'm going to see a big Colin Firth face. It's going to say Colin Firth. It's probably going to say Academy Award winner Geoffrey Rush. So again, I'm just connecting the dots here. In terms of the content, I'm going to use my unique selling points. And then it becomes a question of the placement. Which TV shows do I buy ad time on? Which newspapers and magazines am I buying advertising space in? Easy. The newspapers and magazines, the TV shows that are watched and read by my target audience.
E igualmente, asimilándolo a lo que ocurría antes, a la hora de crear el contenido, por ejemplo, el afiche o el póster que voy a utilizar, ya estoy hablando de crear un contenido por el cual tengo que pagar. Esta era la diferencia que antes hacía él, ¿no? De la campaña publicitaria, de la campaña de anuncios. Ahora estoy creando un póster por el que tengo que pagar y lo que tengo que preguntarme es qué es lo que va en ese póster, qué es lo que va en ese afiche. Pues bueno, en este caso, lógicamente, va la cara del protagonista, que es uno de los elementos únicos de venta de ese proyecto, ¿no? Y exactamente igual la localización del emplazamiento, cuáles son los medios en los que voy a emplazar esa campaña de publicidad, de anuncio en este caso, por la cual estoy pagando. Pues lógicamente son los medios que son potencialmente susceptibles de ser consumidos por el público que va a ver ese proyecto, para el que se cree que se ha hecho ese proyecto.
So the third bucket of tools, if you will, at our disposal as film and television marketers is another one of these umbrella terms. It means many different things, and we refer to this as promotions.
La tercera caja de herramientas haciendo esta analogía que él hace de los elementos que tenemos de marketing y de venta, sería la promoción.
So, can you hear me now? So there are many different kinds of promotions. For example, a trailer is a form of promotion. When you go to a movie theater and before you see the movie, you see what we used to call coming attractions, what's coming next month, next week, etc. No one pays anybody to show a trailer. Because at film distribution company, they understand that the people sitting in the cinema, that those are their customers. They want come back next month. And theaters think the same thing. These are our customers. Please come back to see next month's movie. So a trailer is a form of promotion.
Entonces hay muy distintas formas de promoción. Menciona, por ejemplo, el tráiler, que es la manera, digamos, con la cual los distribuidores creen que van a poder, digamos, fidelizar al espectador. El consumidor es el espectador que está ahora en la sala y con el tráiler lo que están haciendo es decirle, bueno, acuérdate que tienes que venir dentro de un mes cuando se estrene esto.
A website. Everybody's got to have a website. Every project has to have a website. That's a form of promotion. Social media strategy. How are you going to use Facebook, Facebook Live, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, what's your hashtag, etc. It's a given these days that you're going to use social media. We are all using social media all the time now. It's a very, very powerful tool. If you are aware, I assume it happened here in this country, I don't know for a fact, but the film that I mentioned before, The Fault in Our Stars, was the success of that film. It cost $12 million to make, and it grossed in the North America alone around $130 million. And the success of that film was very much driven by the social media campaign that was used, because if you think about that target audience, you may or may not know, Fault in Our Stars was based on a very popular, what we call YA, young adult book. So the target audience for that movie were young adults, primarily women. And the distribution company, and this is around 5 years ago now, they really used social media very, very effectively. And that demographic, that young female demographic who, even 4 or 5 years ago were, on their devices all the time, really were driven, the huge success of the movie was basically a result of the social media campaign that 20th Century Fox did on behalf of that movie. And it was the first film, really, that caused the film industry to sit up and pay attention to social media, because they could see how powerful it was in creating that success.
Señala, adicionalmente al tráiler que comentaba antes, pues evidentemente la página web, cualquier proyecto tiene a día de hoy una página web, y la importancia de la estrategia de redes sociales. Menciona el caso de una película que, si no he apuntado mal, costó 12 millones de presupuesto y recaudó solo en Estados Unidos 120 y tantos millones, solo en Estados Unidos, y cuyo éxito fundamental, era una película que partía de un libro de lo que los editores llaman el género de jóvenes adultos, o un público más o menos de adultos relativamente jóvenes, y se montó una campaña a través de redes sociales que estaba especialmente pensada para mujeres que pertenecen a ese estrato de edad, ¿no?, de jóvenes adultas, y que todo el éxito y toda la campaña estaba basada precisamente en una estrategia de redes sociales.
And there are other kinds of promotions, things like product tie-ins, where product manufacturers may get together with a film distribution company to promote, their product as well as the film. So this takes many forms. You can think about, for example, fast food outlets. So Burger King gets together with Warner Brothers to promote, Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to Mars. That enables Burger King to advertise whatever it is that they sell at Burger King. Enables them to sell it in a new way, right? They get to use those characters, those cartoon characters. And at the same time, the film company, the film distribution company, knows that when that little kid who is saying to his or her parent, Mommy, Daddy, take me to Burger King. I want to get the Alvin and the Chipmunk sippy cup. Well, Warner Brothers knows the very next thing that kid is going to say when he or she has the sippy cup is, Mommy, I want to go see the movie with Alvin and the Chipmunks. That's another form of promotions.
Otra forma de promoción son productos relacionados, productos que se derivan del propio marketing de la película, ¿no? Puede ser, por ejemplo, en el caso de una película infantil como Alvin y las ardillas, pues un acuerdo de la distribuidora con una cadena de comida de hamburguesas, un Burger King, digamos, para que haya una hamburguesa que esté asociada a los personajes de los dibujos, de tal manera que el público infantil le diga a sus padres, oye, quiero ir a probar la hamburguesa esta de Alvin y las ardillas.
There are other forms of kinds of promotions. The only other one I'll mention here is something that we call word of mouth screenings. So word of mouth is a very strong motivator for all of us to go see a film. If you speak to a friend or a family member and you kind of like the same kind of things, movies, etc., and you say to your friend, so what'd you do last night? They say, oh my God, I saw the best movie. It was incredible. Oh my God, you're going to love this movie. It was so fabulous. It's going to win all these awards. I loved it. That's a really strong motivator for you to think when it's time to go to the movie tomorrow night. You think, well, what movie should we go see? You say, well, maybe we should go see that movie. I like the same kind of movies. Think about it. Word of mouth is a very strong motivator. So what we can do as a marketer is we can create our own word of mouth.
Otra forma muy poderosa de publicidad es, digamos, la recomendación directa, la recomendación de boca a oreja, el recomendarle a las personas que tienes cercanas, oye, pues ve a ver esta película porque esta película está muy bien por los motivos que sea. La recomendación directa entre personas, entre tus conocidos, entre tu círculo de amigos, que él considera, digamos, que hay que ser capaces de crear una estrategia para este boca a boca o para transmisión directa entre personas.
So if I have a movie like The King's Speech, maybe 2 weeks before I open that movie in New York City, I have a very exclusive screening for women who work in the media. These women come out of that screening and they're going to go, let's say, to those, chic little dinner parties that women who work in the media go to, I hear. And, they come to this dinner with their friends, whatever, and one of their friends says, well, you're late. Where were you? And they said, oh my God, I went to see this screening of, it was exclusive pre-opening screening of The King's Speech. And someone says, oh yeah, I heard about that movie. That was at Toronto Film Festival. That's with Colin Firth. And how was it? Oh my God, it's great. He's going to win the Academy Award. And they're all like buzzing about this movie, and they leave that dinner party. Everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to see The King's Speech. So that's the film distribution company creating word of mouth by inviting, parts of the target audience in to a special screening before the film opens and getting this word of mouth going. You could think about in a different example, maybe you have a film that appeals to a college age audience. So I don't know, the Harold and Kumar movies, are they still, maybe there's a new Harold and Kumar movie. Does anyone know Harold and Kumar? Yeah, a little? Okay. So, maybe what you would do is have special advanced screenings the Saturday night before the film opens in college and university towns. And we've all heard these ads, it's like it's like you can make a competition, which is a promotion in and of itself. And on the college radio station, or on the college newspaper, we've all heard, the first 200 people to call this number get tickets to a free advanced screening, new Harold and Kumar movie. Everyone goes to the midnight screening, Harold and Kumar movie. Everyone comes out saying, whoa, dude, that was awesome. We got to come back next week. Let's have a party, a Harold and Kumar party. We'll drink a lot of beer and go see Harold and Kumar. That's the film distribution company creating word of mouth.
Entonces, estrategias de las campañas de las agencias de distribución, de las empresas de distribución, creando, por ejemplo, eventos concretos preestreno. En el caso del discurso del rey, crear, por ejemplo, un preestreno para un público específico de mujeres que trabajan para los medios de comunicación, por ejemplo, de tal manera que se cree el nicho, por así decirlo, de suficientes mujeres que vayan a hablar sobre la película a su entorno cercano, ¿vale? Este mismo caso se podría dar, por ejemplo, con un proyecto cuyo público potencial fueran jóvenes que estudian en el instituto o que están en edad universitaria y se pudiera crear algún tipo de evento que estuviera directamente pensado para ellos y que implicara el acudir de forma exclusiva a un preestreno para que pudieran, digamos, crear esta promoción de forma natural.
So, bear with me. I'm going to talk about distribution for 10 minutes and we're going to take a break. So just hang on for 10 more minutes. Because they kind of go together, marketing and distribution. So when we talk about distribution, when I talk about distribution, it really is by answering the where and when question. Where and when can I see this? Let's talk about a theatrical motion picture. Where and when can I see it?
Entonces, hablando de distribución, que le va a llevar 10 minutos y luego vamos a hacer el descanso, pero quiere conectarlo porque la comunicación y la distribución están conectadas. En términos de distribución hay que dar respuesta a dos preguntas, y es ¿dónde y cuándo?
So I'm going to ask that you consider 4 moments in time in the distribution life of a theatrical motion picture.
Si consideramos 4 momentos clave en el tiempo en lo que puede corresponder, digamos, a etapas en las que se puede estrenar una película.
So the first moment in time is where and when are you going to show your film to the public for the very first time?
Entonces,
At a certain point, you have to show your film to the world. You've been working on it, you've been showing it to people who worked on the film or people, your agents or money people. At a certain point, you need to show your film to the world. We call that first time the launch of a film.
Entonces, la primera vez y el primer sitio donde vamos a enseñar la película al público lo categorizamos como el lanzamiento de la película.
So I'm going to ask that you think about 2 different types of films. The first film is the very high-profile film where everyone knows about this film already. Everyone's waiting to see this film. It's Black Panther, it's Captain Marvel, it's the new Star Wars, the new Harry Potter film, Mission Impossible 28. You know, everyone is waiting to see this movie. When it comes to the launch, I really don't have to work very hard. All I really have to do is like a red carpet premiere. I have movie stars walking up and down the carpet. We're generating publicity. We have paparazzi snapping photos. That's one way that's the obvious way to launch that very high-profile film that's coming into the marketplace.
Entonces, bueno, hay que considerar, por ejemplo, el caso de una película que él llama película mainstream, digamos, lo que él llama una película de perfil muy alto, una película que todo el mundo está deseando ver, porque hay mucho hype creado alrededor de esa película, y entonces digamos que hay poco más que hacer que crear un evento de alfombra roja con las celebrities y con digamos, los personajes muy conocidos para crear el lanzamiento de la película.
But now think about at the completely opposite end of the spectrum, a small little movie made by a first-time film director, no-name actors, very low budget.
Y el caso completamente contrario de una película de un director novel sin actores conocidos, la primera película de todo el mundo.
Maybe that's a film that I want to show for the very first time in public to a group of people who have all gotten together to discover the new directors, the new writers, the new actors. Maybe that's a film that I want to launch at a film festival.
Este tipo de película probablemente a lo mejor es la película que quiero lanzar en un festival de cine, porque lo que quiero plantearlo es quiero plantearlo de la forma que permita, bueno, pues descubrir nuevo talento, descubrir nuevos directores, descubrir nuevos actores. Quizá la forma es lanzarlo en un festival.
And there are many different kinds of film festivals. It really depends on the kind of film that you have. And understand that I'm just using these examples. There's no right or wrong here. If there was one word that I would emphasize with regards to all of this conversation about marketing as well as distribution, when you're making these decisions, these are all strategic decisions. It's all a question of strategy. There's no right or wrong. You want to try to come up with the right strategy to maximize the commercial potential of your project.
Y de lo que se trata de tener claro en términos de marketing es que no hay una cuestión de decisiones correctas o incorrectas, es más bien una cuestión de decisiones estratégicas. Estamos hablando de plantear una estrategia creyendo que probablemente va a salir bien, sin tener ninguna seguridad de si realmente estamos en el camino correcto o en el incorrecto.
So the next moment in time in the distribution life of a film designed for the cinema will be where and when can an audience member now go see this film in a cinema? Where and when can someone buy a ticket for the very first time? And we call that the opening of the film.
Entonces el siguiente paso sería cuándo y dónde se va a producir el estreno, cuándo y dónde va a ocurrir eso de que realmente el público vaya a pagar una entrada por ver la película, y eso es lo que sería el momento que él llama el estreno.
And in terms of strategically deciding the kind of opening, what you would want to consider in whatever territory you're in, Spain, Great Britain, United States, you want to think, what you would determine is which cities would you open the film in and the number of screens.
Entonces, en España o en cualquier territorio, digamos que la primera respuesta a la que hay que dar es qué ciudades, por ejemplo, van a ser las elegidas para que se estrene la película.
So think about our two different types of films. Think about that very high-profile movie, Black Panther, or Captain Marvel is the new one with Brie Larson? So everyone's waiting to see this movie. So which cities are we going to open that in? Every city. We're not going to make people work very hard. There are millions of people who want to come see this movie. Don't worry, we're going to make it very easy for you to come see Captain Marvel. So it's going to open in, every city, and certainly in North America now, you see these blockbuster movies opening on 3, if not 4,000 screens across the country. So they're everywhere, and I'm sure this release pattern is replicated in Spain, other territories. We call this type of opening a wide opening. Basically, it's everywhere.
Entonces, una película mainstream o una película de superhéroes, por ejemplo, evidentemente, él comenta que en Estados Unidos una película de este tipo puede tener un estreno de 3.000 o 4.000 salas en el primer fin de semana. Es, digamos, un estreno amplio, ¿vale? Porque estamos hablando de películas que todo el mundo está esperando ir a ver.
But now think about that little movie. First-time filmmaker, unknown actors, low budget, no advertising money, nothing. Maybe that's a film that we want to go very slowly with when we bring it into the marketplace. Like we're just going to dip our toe in the water and see the temperature. So that's a film that maybe we only want to open in 1 or 2 cities, and only maybe 1 or 2 screens in each of those cities. So in the United States, we would say New York and Los Angeles, because those are the cities where they're the national media centers. We're going to need the media, publicity, talking about this movie, because we don't have the money to pay for advertising. So I'm sure the similar situation here, you would open a movie, maybe 1 or 2 screens in Madrid, 1 or 2 screens in Barcelona.
Entonces,
And we call that type of opening a limited opening.
En ese caso contrario de la película independiente, de director desconocido, de actores desconocidos, película que hay que descubrir, de lo que estamos hablando es de un estreno limitado. Ahí sí se decide, pues digamos, qué ciudades y qué número de pantallas. Pues a lo mejor voy a estrenar en 2 salas en una ciudad esta semana y la semana que viene en otras 2 salas en una ciudad. En el caso de Estados Unidos, él lo que plantea es que esas ciudades son Nueva York y Los Ángeles porque son los centros neurálgicos de la industria del entretenimiento, y que en el caso de España, pues a lo mejor esas ciudades serían Madrid y Barcelona.
That's the first weekend. Now we have to look at what happens in weekend number 2, weekend number 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, and on. That's called the release of a film.
Y que este escenario que se está planteando es para el primer fin de semana. La cuestión es, digamos, el recorrido de la película. ¿Cuál es el recorrido de la película en los siguientes fines de semana?
So in the case of that very high-profile film, right, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, new Star Wars, it opened wide, so it's in every city on hundreds, thousands of screens. That's the first weekend. Second weekend, well, we're not adding any cities. We're already everywhere. We're already on all of these screens. So we're going to maintain the number of screens and the number of cities, but what we're going to do is use more marketing to tell people, come back, come. If you got sold out last weekend on the new Star Wars, no problem. We're still here. Come back. So that wide release, that wide opening becomes what we refer to as a general release. We're just going to keep it in all of those theaters. We're going to have more marketing, more advertising, more publicity, more promotions. Keep coming, everybody. We're still here.
Entonces, en el caso de las películas mainstream, de esas películas, por ejemplo, de superhéroes o de la nueva película de Star Wars, digamos que lo que se plantea es, bueno, se han vendido todas las entradas el primer fin de semana, pero no te preocupes porque estamos aquí y se utilizan estrategias de más marketing, más promoción, más publicidad para, digamos, dar la oportunidad a la gente que no pudo ir el primer fin de semana.
But then think about that little movie. Unknown actors, first-time director. We opened 1 or 2 screens in Madrid, 1 or 2 screens Barcelona, and we did pretty good. People liked the movie. Good reviews, selling tickets. Okay, weekend number 2. Maybe we'll open, I don't know, maybe we open 1 screen in San Sebastian. Does pretty good second weekend. Okay, third weekend. Doing pretty good. Let's open, I don't know, 1 or 2 screens. Where would you go? Toledo, Sevilla, maybe? The weekend after that, okay, let's add another city or 2. In the United States, you would start New York, LA, then maybe you go to San Francisco, maybe you then add Chicago, then at the fourth weekend you add Boston or Washington, D.C. And what you're doing is you're slowly rolling the film out, adding cities and screens, and we call that release pattern literally a slow rollout. And in this instance, what you would think about is, what would the maximum number of screens be for this project? So I don't know the numbers here in Spain, but you know, if for certain films, if they get to 100 screens, a little movie in the United, that's a good thing. Some they can get to 350 screens. That's really good for that movie with unknown actors. Or maybe it's a strategy to start small, but it's the kind of film where there are movie stars and it can get to 1,000 screens or more. So again, the strategic decision would be to identify what would the maximum number of screens be that this film could handle.
En el otro caso que plantea de la película independiente, que el primer fin de semana ha ido bien, ha hecho algo de taquilla en Madrid y Barcelona y ha recibido unas cuantas críticas, la estrategia, digamos, es ir ampliando el número de ciudades y el número de salas en las que se estrena en los siguientes fines de semana. A lo mejor el segundo fin de semana se añade una ciudad, a lo mejor el tercer fin de semana se añaden 2 ciudades más. La cuestión que él plantea, digamos, a nivel estratégico, es que hay que saber cuál es el máximo número de pantallas, cuál es el máximo número de salas a las que potencialmente va a llegar esa película. Él no tiene los datos en España, pero digamos que en Estados Unidos plantea el escenario de que una película de este estilo pudiera llegar a lo mejor a 100 o 150 pantallas. La cuestión es tener claro de antes cuál es el máximo número de pantallas al que va a llegar.
And then finally, we all know that eventually theatrical motion pictures will play their way out of the theatrical marketplace, meaning everyone who wanted to go see a movie in a theater, they've been there. It's not selling tickets anymore. Theater owners only want movies on their screens that are selling tickets. Not selling tickets, take the movie off. We need to make room for the new movie that's opening Friday on the weekend that a lot of people are waiting to see.
Hay que tener en cuenta que el único motivo por el que se va a mantener una película en la sala es en la medida en que venda entradas. En el momento en que la película no venda entradas, el dueño, el exhibidor, el dueño de la sala va a hacer hueco a la siguiente película que va a entrar.
But we all know that there are many ways for us to see theatrical motion pictures not in theaters, not in cinemas. And we call that the ancillary markets, and that's the end of this distribution life of a theatrical motion picture. The fact that I can see a film that was made to be seen in the cinema, but now I can watch it on video on demand. I can buy a DVD. I can watch it on the various digital platforms that we know and love, like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever. We can see a theatrical motion picture on pay television, the kind of television that you pay money every month to see. I don't know what the popular channels are here for paid television, but then we can also see theatrical motion pictures on free television, the kind of television that you do not pay a monthly subscription for. We've all seen lots of movies on lots of airplanes. So the airlines is what we call an ancillary market. Ancillary is a word, it means off to the side. This is a theatrical motion picture that was meant to be designed to be seen in a theater, but now we're seeing it in other places. It's off to the side. We call these ancillary markets. And this is important to us as producers, not just because these are other ways that audiences can see what we've made, but these are all revenue streams. It costs money to watch a film on video on demand. It costs money to download if you're not pirating. Thank you very much. So this is now revenue coming back to the project, and that's going to be very important to us and very important to our investors.
Y desde el punto de vista de productor, lo que plantea es que hay que tener en cuenta que hay muchas otras vías de distribución de una película, incluso aunque sea una película para cine. Es lo que él plantea en ese término de ancillary, mercados ancillary, que son mercados, digamos, de distribución que están fuera del objetivo primero de la película, que era estrenarse en cine, y pueden ser canales de pago, vídeo bajo demanda, digamos, plataformas digitales, todo el mundo de las plataformas digitales que conocemos ahora. Y que además, desde el punto de vista de producción, son muy importantes como estrategia de beneficios adicionales para el productor.
And that's marketing and distribution, and that's what I've got, really. So I guess now we can take a break.
Vale, pues ahora paramos un momentito y continuamos. Neal va a comentar ahora, bueno, una de las prácticas que él decía que comentaba habitualmente allí en New York Film Academy, que es lo que llaman estudio de caso. Va a hablar sobre pues la estrategia de lanzamiento de Stranger Things, que todos conocéis, y ha hecho también una selección de un par de proyectos de entre los que ha recibido para poder dar feedback a las personas que se los han enviado. So ready when you are, Neal.
So I think it's kind of compulsory these days to at least address the changes in the industry brought about, primarily by the digital revolution. The technology has afforded us a lot of opportunity. Mostly what I'm talking about are really these digital platforms that are bringing content to millions upon millions of people. I'm talking about the digital platforms like Netflix, like Amazon, Hulu, YouTube, Apple. They're all getting in the act, and it just feels like, for some reason, I need to somehow address this development because it is quite significant.
Vale, muy resumido, voy a intentar ir resumiendo mucho lo que él va contando. ¿Alguien necesita de esta especie de interpretación o todo el mundo está entendiéndole todo el rato? Lo digo también porque es una forma de darle más tiempo a él. Si yo no tengo que estar haciendo resúmenes de lo que él dice, la hora que queda puede ser para que él cuente todo lo que tenga que contar, ¿vale? Y si hay alguien que no entiende nada, no hay ningún problema. se continúa con el método que hemos seguido, pero si en líneas generales se le está entendiendo, a lo mejor es más eficaz que si hay una duda alguien pregunte y hacemos, digamos, la interpretación. ¿Os parece bien? ¿O hay mucha gente que no entiende nada de lo que está contando? ¿Podemos levantar la mano, no pasa nada? Una persona, ¿tú no entiendes nada de lo que... Poco. Vale, bueno, pues entonces hago un resumen, intento hacer un resumen muy rápido, ¿vale? Lo que comenta Neal es que es obligatorio en el momento en el que estamos considerar lo que supone el escenario de las plataformas digitales como pueden ser Amazon, Hulu, Netflix y todo el ámbito de plataformas digitales que conocemos como nuevos canales de distribución, y yo diría que no solamente nuevos canales de distribución, sino de hecho como nuevas formas de producción, están produciendo contenido.
You know, to understand kind of where we're at, or let alone think about where we're going, it probably is worthwhile to spend just a moment looking at where we've been in terms of the history of these kinds of companies.
La cuestión es marcar la diferencia entre, en términos de compañías de producción, dónde se ha movido, cuál ha sido el escenario en el que nos movíamos hasta ahora en lo que concierne a compañías de producción y cuál es el punto en el que estamos ahora con estas nuevas plataformas como compañías de producción.
So Netflix has been around for a while, and before what we would call, I guess, the digital revolution, before we all went digital, which really is only maybe 8 or 10 years ago. It kind of feels like a long time ago, but or not so long time ago, depending on your perspective. But it wasn't that long ago. So before all the digital platforms came into being, before the technology came to that point, you may remember DVDs, right? So we would all, and before DVDs, there were videotapes. But Netflix really became an important company because it was a video distributor. They distributed videos. You may or may not remember that. Well, I don't know. I don't think it even existed here in this country before the digital. But historically, in North America, Netflix was a distributor of DVDs, and what was interesting and different about them is that they would send DVDs to your home. You didn't have to go to, you may or may not remember, depending on how old you are, we used to go to these things that don't exist anymore. They were called video stores. Remember? Blockbuster Video, Tower Video. Every town had a video store. So when Netflix made its name was they said, you don't have to leave your house. We will mail the DVDs to you. And that's really the origin of Netflix.
El origen de Netflix, antes de ser lo que conocemos ahora como gran plataforma y compañía de producción, era una cadena de distribución de DVD siguiendo la línea de los antiguos videoclubs, que incluso algunos muy grandes como Blockbuster, que algunos de los que estáis aquí recordaréis, y la diferencia, hablando de lo que ocurría en Estados Unidos, era que Netflix te llevaba los DVDs a casa, digamos que era un mensajero de DVDs, un distribuidor de DVDs que te los llevaba a casa, un videoclub en casa.
So they were a video distributor, and the video rights were pretty much an afterthought. When I spoke about distribution, we got to the ancillary markets. You can see video, it comes at the end of the whole process. So before digital, video rights were very often thought of as an afterthought. They were like the little crumbs left over on the plate. And Netflix realized that if they wanted to be able to distribute more high-profile projects, that they had to get involved. If you think about the producing process, if you think about the finance phase, they had been used to buying video rights all the way at the end, at the distribution stage. But they realized that if they wanted to be able to distribute more high-profile projects, they needed to get involved at the finance stage, kind of like the pre-sales that I spoke about. And in order to do that, that was the first time they got involved with financing production. And they created a small little company, a division called Red Envelope, because you used to get the DVDs from Netflix in a red envelope in the post at your house. And they hired a friend of mine, Bob Aronson, in Los Angeles, to help run this division that was putting money into films at the finance stage so that they could get the video rights and not wait for whatever the studios didn't want to distribute, those crumbs, if you will.
Vale, resumiéndolo mucho, la cuestión es que lo que Netflix se dio cuenta es que puesto que estaba en el negocio de la distribución de contenidos, si quería poder distribuir contenidos de más calidad, una de las formas era esta cuestión que Neal ha comentado ya varias veces, tanto en la jornada de ayer como en la de hoy, que es la precompra de derechos. Fue la forma en la que Netflix, a través de una compañía específicamente creada que se llamaba Sobre Rojo, y esto venía de que los DVDs que te mandaba a casa Netflix iban en un sobre rojo, ¿vale? Y es el nombre que le dieron a la compañía. Fue una compañía de distribución que empezó a hacer precompra de derechos sobre proyecto.
We used to call this type of financing end-user financing because Netflix was considered an end user, right? Video rights that would come at the end of all of that distribution, but I put up, oh look, it's still there. So you can see home video, it's all the way at the end. So they were referred to as end-user financiers. They were putting money in at the finance stage, but they came at the end. Is when you would be able to see a film project distributed, via the DVD via Netflix. Do you want to just do that part?
Ya, bueno, básicamente es de esa manera Netflix entra en la financiación y en la cadena de financiación de la que Neal ha estado hablando, entra en el último eslabón de la cadena, que es, digamos, la parte de la financiación de mercado doméstico.
But then we all went digital and all changed. And the DVD market went away. I mean, there's still DVDs, it's mostly Blu-ray that you consider really for film aficionados, collectors, whatever. But basically, in terms of the film industry, as well as everything else, the music industry, the publishing industry, we've all gone digital. So at first, it was very upsetting in the film industry. I mean, first it happened in the music industry, and no one knew how to deal with the fact that, everything had changed because of the technology. And the loss of the DVD market, I believe it's a North American number. I don't think it's worldwide. But the implosion of the DVD market, the fact that the DVD market just went away, is estimated to still, I guess, the number was that it was $750 million a year. Just went away, just got sucked out of the film economy. And that affected everybody. That's a lot of money. That's $750 million that had been in the film economy. So producers were able to tap into that to make projects. Distributors were reaping that money. It just went away. So it was very upsetting to, in terms of the people working in the film industry. The old model had just collapsed, and no one really knew what was going to happen next, and how could we monetize this new digital technology. And it's only now that you're beginning to see the industry kind of get its head around, monetizing the digital.
Lo que Neal resume es que evidentemente es algo que ya sabemos, y es que, digamos, el cambio de digitalización supone la caída de la industria de los medios de comunicación como la conocíamos. A muchos niveles, tanto en el ámbito de la producción como ocurre igualmente, y en este caso en concreto, puesto que estamos hablando de Netflix, ocurre también con respecto a lo que es el soporte físico. Desaparece el valor del soporte físico porque, independientemente de que todavía haya personas que coleccionan DVDs o Blu-rays a día de hoy y que estén más en el ámbito del aficionado, realmente el consumo global se convierte en consumo digital a través del ordenador o del móvil o de cualquier dispositivo móvil. Él estima una cifra de unos 750 millones de dólares al año que desaparecen de la industria. El modelo que había se derrumba, literalmente, es la palabra que él utiliza, y hasta ahora, en el momento en el que estamos, no sabemos exactamente cómo empezar a monetizar, cómo empezar a dar un cierto retorno de negocio al modelo digital que tenemos.
So the good news is that, as we are all aware, Netflix has really, grown enormously. First of all, it's now available around the world, and that's, I'm sure you're all very aware, that's a recent occurrence. I don't know when Netflix came to Spain, but I have to assume it's within the last 5 years.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I would have students, at the New York Film Academy, we have students from all over the world. And up until several years ago, most people from outside of North America say, oh, we don't have Netflix in Brazil. We don't have Netflix in Italy. We don't have Netflix. But that's all changed, right? So now they're a, international distribution platform, which is in and of itself very significant, because if your project is on Netflix now, if I make a film, the last film I made was a documentary, and we were on Netflix, but it was before Netflix became international, so my film was not available outside of North America. If I was making that and releasing that film today, you all would be able to see it just as people in Florida.
Entonces, las buenas noticias de esta parte, digamos, incierta en la que nos movemos, es que esta forma de mercado digital se convierte en un mercado global, de tal forma que ahora mismo la presencia de Netflix está en todos los países, y eso permite, por ejemplo, en el caso de la última producción que él hizo, que es el documental sobre el que ha hecho referencia otras veces, ese documental no tuvo un estreno internacional fuera de los Estados Unidos, pero a día de hoy el comercializarlo a través de Netflix le permitiría comercializarlo a nivel global.
So that's a huge plus. Think from the producers, from the filmmakers' point of view, the sheer numbers of the audience now has just gone, wow, just exploded in terms of you get your film on Netflix, and now think of the millions upon millions of people who previously would have no access to your project. Now it's available to them. So that's a huge plus for us as storytellers, producers, writers, directors, actors, etc.
Entonces, digamos que la diferencia, la parte buena de este asunto, es que el mercado, la audiencia, el target potencial se ha multiplicado por millones, en la medida en que las plataformas digitales te van a permitir llegar a una audiencia que antes no podías llegar en el modelo tradicional. Eso, desde el punto de vista creativo, es muy llamativo. Es decir, para nuestro perfil como cineastas, productores, directores, escritores, generadores de contenido, la posibilidad que tenemos de llegar a toda la audiencia, a millones de personas, es enorme.
And they have a lot of money.
Y tienen mucho dinero.
Because the audience has grown, if you pay your subscription fee every month, have Netflix, so all these millions upon millions of people are pouring all this money into Netflix, and to their credit, they now understand that to keep the audience, to attract a bigger audience, to increase their subscriber base, people who are paying every month, that they have to provide really interesting product. And so now Netflix has basically become, a huge financier of content. And they have very intelligently understood that in order to maintain, for example, the Spanish subscriber base and to grow it, that they're not just offering Hollywood content, that they are now financing local content. So you see Netflix Spain, Netflix Italy, you know, they're creating Spanish content, they're financing Spanish content, French content, Italian content, and again, that is a huge opportunity for us that did not exist 10 years ago, and I think the numbers, and I don't know if this is a worldwide number, I assume it is, but who knows, that Netflix is putting in this 1 year alone $1.25 billion, $1 billion into original content.
Es una diferencia fundamental de algo que hace 10 años no ocurría, ¿no? Es la fuente de financiación más importante a nivel global, cuando digo a nivel global me refiero a nivel mundial, con una estrategia que está clara, y es que ellos se han dado cuenta, puesto que el modelo es que todo el mundo que tenemos una suscripción a Netflix pagamos todos los meses, y eso está, digamos, revertiendo los beneficios de la compañía para mantener los mercados locales. Lo que hace Netflix ahora es abrir divisiones de producción locales, lo que está haciendo es apoyar la producción de contenido en cada país, contenido local. Netflix España produce contenido para ser comercializado en España, lo mismo ocurre en Francia, lo mismo ocurre en Italia.
So that's the good news. The not so good news is, as you might be aware, so Netflix insists on showing their product on Netflix. So if you're a theatrical motion picture filmmaker, you may have your heart set on seeing your movie in a cinema. And if Netflix comes in with all of their money and says, we'll finance your movie, but, you know, only to be seen on Netflix, that can be a real kind of disappointment for some filmmakers.
La cuestión es que realmente lo que hay que ver es, digamos, a qué acuerdo se llega desde el punto de vista de productor. Entiendo que es eso lo que planteaba más o menos, porque puede, digamos, cortar las alas de distribución de otras posibles formas de distribución, ¿no?
Sí, lo que está diciendo es que si tú quieres hacer una película, tú quieres que se ponga en un cine, pero si te la financia Netflix, Netflix no va a querer que estén en los cines, sino que esté solo en Netflix. Entonces eso puede ser un poco decepcionante desde el punto de vista de la producción propia, porque no te la puedes llevar a ningún sitio que no sea Netflix.
But this whole landscape is very fluid. Things are changing. First of all, it's not a terrible thing if you are a director and you have your heart set on seeing your movie in a cinema. You compare that with the number of people who will go see a movie in a cinema, total, even if you make a very successful film. And then you can compare the numbers to the vast audience that Netflix has. So there's no denying that the potential for many, many, many more people to see your work exists on Netflix and not in the cinema.
Con lo cual, digamos que como creadores de contenido lo que tenemos que hacer es cambiar nuestra perspectiva, no seguir dándole importancia o no seguir dándole tanta importancia al hecho de que nuestra película se vaya a ver en un cine. Por mucho éxito que tenga nuestra película en un cine, incluso en el caso más exitoso de todos, lógicamente siempre va a llegar a menos público que la audiencia potencial que ofrece una plataforma como Netflix.
But Netflix wants, as we say, they want to have their cake and eat it too. I don't know how you translate that one. Do you have something similar?
Sí, quiere el pastel y quiere comérselo. Netflix quiere el pastel y quiere comérselo.
Because, you know, they like Academy Awards. They like the prestige that comes with having a film at the Cannes Film Festival or win a prize at the Venice Film Festival. They want that. But they also want to keep their films on Netflix. So what we're seeing now is Netflix is breaking down a little bit, and there have been some controversies with Cannes because the French government said no, if you play Cannes, you must allow your movie to be in cinemas, not just Netflix. There's been some movement away from these very strict positions, and that's most notable in the movie Roma. So Alfonso Cuarón's new movie Roma, which has been playing here, it's just about to open in the States. And that's Netflix. They financed that whole film. Well, that film did play film festivals in the fall. It's gotten a lot of attention. They're definitely going to try to get Academy Awards. And in order to get an Academy Award, your film must play at least 1 week in a theater in New York or Los Angeles. But they're going to be releasing that film much more than just 1 week in New York and LA. And if you've seen the film, you know, that's a film that deserves to be seen on a big screen. I mean, it's so incredibly visual and beautiful. So Netflix is kind of breaking down in that regard because they want their cake and to eat it too.
Entonces, la cuestión es que el escenario está cambiando continuamente porque en la medida en que Netflix quiere, digamos, por un lado ser el único o el más importante productor de contenidos, también quiere, digamos, la parte de prestigio y la parte que va asociada a todo lo relacionado con el mundo del cine, poder ganar premios, poder participar en el Festival de Cannes. Neal menciona el caso de la película Roma, dirigida por Alfonso Cuarón, digamos, como ejemplo de lo que ocurre a veces con lo que le plantean determinados gobiernos a Netflix, por ejemplo. Bueno, no puedes estrenar una película en Cannes si no tiene un estreno cinematográfico, o no puedes optar a unos premios de la Academia si no has estrenado esta película por lo menos durante un fin de semana en Nueva York o en Los Ángeles. Digamos que el escenario está cambiando en la medida en que Netflix quiere tener el patrimonio de que solamente produzcas para ellos, pero al mismo tiempo también quiere entrar dentro de la parte importante de la industria del cine, poder ganar premios, poder participar en festivales de prestigio.
The other frustrating thing about Netflix is that they're opaque. They're not transparent. They don't really tell anybody what they're doing. So if you're a filmmaker, for example, they do not release numbers. You know, yesterday I showed you Box Office Mojo. So that's a website. It's very easy to find out how much money films make at the box office all over the world. That's open information. It's released to the press, to the public. Everyone knows. Netflix, they don't tell anybody anything. So you really have no idea how many people, if you're a filmmaker and your movie's on Netflix, you have no idea how many people are watching your movie. They don't release these numbers. It's not very open in terms of bringing projects to them. They're not very transparent. So it's a frustration for a lot of people. We'll see to what extent that may change over time as well.
Otro problema principal con Netflix es su opacidad, y es que no da la información, y digamos que eso puede llegar a ser muy frustrante desde el punto de vista del creador de contenidos. Ayer Neal os enseñaba una web que es Box Office Mojo, donde se publican de forma transparente los datos de recaudación, por ejemplo, de las películas a nivel internacional, tanto en el mercado local como en el mercado extranjero. Uno de los problemas de Netflix es que Netflix no da información de sus cifras. Si tú eres alguien que ha hecho un acuerdo con Netflix y ha colocado su contenido en la plataforma, Netflix no te va a decir qué número de espectadores has tenido, por ejemplo. Tampoco es transparente a la hora de transmitir suficiente información. Con lo cual, lo que Neal está planteando es, bueno, tenemos que ver exactamente en qué termina todo esto, porque, digamos, a la hora de tratar con ellos es muy complicado y muy frustrante.
That's Netflix. It's a great opportunity for us, but it's not without its frustrations. I thought what would be interesting was to look at a Bible. A TV series Bible is kind of the television industry's version of the package. I've been talking about packages over the last 2 days. For a television series, if you have an idea for a TV series, you would bring it to a network, a broadcaster, and like the film package, you know, you're going to hopefully tell the potential broadcaster and financier everything they want to know about the project. But because by definition, it's a series, an episodic series. What you're not going to do is to bring in scripts for, 12 episodes of a series. That's a lot of script. What you would do is put together, maybe you'd have this script for the first episode, what we call the pilot episode. But they want to know, well, what happens in episode number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? And what if it's a successful season and then we want a second season? What's going to happen? Who are the characters? What are the storylines? You put all that information to what we refer to as a TV series Bible. And we can look at together briefly. This is the Bible for the television show, which was originally called Montauk. Now, I have to assume, I don't know, I don't watch the show, I'm not familiar with it, but I'm aware of it, very aware of it. It looks like it was based on a book, but I don't know that for a fact. But this Bible for something called Montauk became Stranger Things. So have you heard of that show? Stranger Things? Yeah, it's kind of a big hit on Netflix. So we can just take a look at, we can just scroll through this. It was originally called Montauk. And so you can see, this is when I refer to lookbook, and when we asked for people to submit projects for this workshop, I did notice that there were some people who really kind of got some nice little materials together. So obviously someone's teaching this kind of nicely at the school. But this is what I was talking about, lookbook, so this is a really, look at this image in terms of, a lookbook image. So this is not a picture of an actor. It's not really a location shot, but it's very atmospheric. It really it has like an emotional impact. You kind of get a feeling from this image. And here underneath, if you can read it, it says an epic tale of sci-fi horror.
Una cosa que, para resumirlo mucho, porque ha contado muchas cosas, ha hablado de cuál es el concepto de Biblia de una serie de televisión y que cuando mueves un proyecto para una serie de televisión, lógicamente no mueves, si tienes 12 capítulos, no mueves los guiones de los 12 capítulos porque es mucho material para leer. Básicamente, por resumirlo mucho, lo que nos enseña ahora es la Biblia de lo que originalmente era el proyecto de Stranger Things, con otro título. Comenta que probablemente ese proyecto original basado en un libro y lo relaciona con algo que él estuvo comentando ayer, que es el libro de estilo del package, del paquete del proyecto, ¿vale? Que era algo sobre lo que comentaba, un elemento muy importante porque es un elemento visual, porque era eso de añadir imágenes a lo que solamente es un documento de palabras y de cifras. Es el libro de estilo donde él hablaba que se introducen imágenes que proveen de la atmósfera, del tono, no necesitan ser fotos de los actores. Eso en formato serie de televisión es lo que llamamos una Biblia.
So here it's a little introduction in terms of the project. They're saying they want it to be an 8-hour science fiction horror epic where it's set, Long Island, outside part of New York, 1980, inspired by, I don't know what just happened there. Why is that happening?
Because you are clicking on the...
I don't click. Anyway, they're talking about the inspiration for it, a love letter to the golden age of Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, etc. How do I get rid of that? Oh, anyway. So here's a cool, they're comparing it, this is a very famous image from E.T., the Spielberg film. So they're trying to say, evoking a feel for the new show that they want to create is a kind of, as they use, like a love letter, a Valentine to these classic films. This is from Spielberg's E.T.
Las primeras páginas de la Biblia, por un lado, plantean una presentación una presentación escrita de lo que sería el tono del proyecto, digamos que recuerda Todos habéis visto Stranger Things, ¿no? Que recuerda a los Goonies, que tiene elementos de las novelas de Stephen King, de las películas de Spielberg de los años 80 y 90. Entonces, digamos que lo que se hace es un par de párrafos que resumen eso. Se añade una imagen icónica de E.T., digamos, evocando ese ambiente o ese tipo de mood que puede crear ese tipo de película.
And now they get into kind of, it's a bit of a treatment. They're giving background as to, the story that they're going to tell. So we're not going to read this here. They're citing this kind of real world event where, something may or may not have happened, having to do with surveillance during the Cold War, and etc.
Intentando crear también a base de referencias reales, digamos un backstory, darle un background, darle un soporte de alguna forma al proyecto que están planteando.
But you can see, like, even an image like this gives a sense of atmosphere.
Incluso lo importante de este tipo de imágenes es que lo que buscan es la creación de una atmósfera.
And so that was the introduction. Now it gets into basically the treatment of the story, of what's actually going to happen in the story of what became Stranger Things.
Y lo que veis ahora es un ejemplo de algo que Neal comentaba ayer cuando hablaba de lo que hacen los guionistas cuando escriben un tratamiento, un formato de tratamiento donde cuentan la historia independientemente de lo que es el formato de guión.
Another Spielberg image. This is from Close Encounters. Again, the creators of this new show are saying the atmosphere, the feel of the show that we want to make is very much in the spirit of the Spielberg movies, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Una imagen de referencia, en este caso de Encuentros en la tercera fase, lo mismo, intentando crear el ambiente, la atmósfera, el mood, evocando ese tipo de cine.
And now a discussion, a description of what the structure of the television series might be. Here they're talking about, they're breaking it up into acts. They're suggesting cast here. Obviously, none of these actors wound up being a part of Stranger Things, but again, they were just kind of the creators of the show were trying to suggest the level of actor, the type of actor, and then they get into the structure of the story in terms of episodes 1 and 2 making up Act 1. Then they moved to Act 2 because originally, remember, they thought they were making an 8-episode series. Well, obviously the series has become successful and they've gone way beyond 8 episodes.
Lógicamente la Biblia es de la primera temporada porque cuando se desarrolla una Biblia no sabes cuántas temporadas vas a tener. Era una primera temporada de 8 episodios y esa página lo que resumía era la estructura, digamos, en el arco, en lo que conocemos como arco narrativo, acto 1, acto medio o zona intermedia y final, pues cómo se repartían los distintos actos de la estructura a lo largo de los 8 capítulos.
Here's a description of the tone and style of the project, and they're citing, the time period that it was very much set in 1980 and what was happening in 1980 at that time in terms of visual clues, cultural clues. So this was a time when the first, Star Wars movies were happening. They were in the theaters, etc.
Una nueva página que hace referencia, pues digamos, en este caso, valga la redundancia, a referentes, ¿no? Menciona películas de Carpenter como La Cosa o La Niebla, películas, marca el momento, digamos, que es importante desde el punto de vista histórico a lo que está haciendo referencia, que es la década de los 80.
More stills from movies that evoke the style of the project that they want to make. So this is from Poltergeist, another Spielberg produced. He didn't direct it, but Toby Hooper. Here you go, which is a terrific film if you don't know it. And the little kind of conversation just now about the genre itself, which is perennially a popular genre in terms of horror films. Another image from Hellraiser, directed by Clive Barker. Talking about the characters now, so if you are familiar with Stranger Things, you know the all the main characters are these kids. So little character descriptions. And this is still from Stand By Me, which was quite a well-known film in the 80s about a bunch of kids, directed by Rob Reiner, another really terrific film. But this again was the atmosphere that they wanted to create, the camaraderie between these characters. You know, it's a show about where the main characters are kids.
Bueno, ha habido un par de páginas que hablaban sobre el género y sobre un género tan popular como el terror. Un par de imágenes más, una de Poltergeist y otra de Stand By Me, de Cuenta Conmigo, la llamaron aquí. Como veis, son todos referencias a películas de los años 80, que es, digamos, la gran referencia que maneja Stranger Things.
So another kind of character description of the character they refer to as the outsider, then these other characters, the teenagers, kind of giving a feel for teenagers as portrayed in other films. And then the adult characters as well.
Y desarrollo, digamos, hay más parte en la Biblia que corresponde a desarrollo de los personajes adolescentes, los protagonistas adultos, alguna imagen más de referencia, todas ellas dando el tono de los años 80.
And here they're talking about, well, we're presenting a proposal here for 8 episodes of a series, but should it be successful, we have a lot more story to tell, and we could certainly expand this beyond 8 episodes, which is obviously what has indeed happened.
Y un elemento fundamental de cualquier Biblia de una serie, que es, digamos, qué elemento podemos franquiciar cuando desarrollamos la Biblia de una serie y buscamos potencial inversión, tenemos que tener claro que tenemos que tener la posibilidad de continuar, de franquiciar la serie.
So that's the Stranger Things Bible. It was made, but they didn't call it Montauk, they called it Stranger Things, and the rest is history. So I don't know if anyone has, I mean, I know we spoke to a couple of individuals. If you do indeed have a package, you know, for a feature film, an English language feature-length film that would target the international marketplace, you know, we would love to hear from you. You know, what you would want to do is just tell us if you have a title, what the genre of the project would be. If you have a log line, that would be fun. And then we'd love to hear a package, and we can just kind of talk about if we all think it's commercially viable. And when we say a package, remember, we're just referring to, you know, okay, do you have a director, any cast in mind, and what would the budget number be? So who has a little package to discuss?
Bueno, ha cerrado la parte de la Biblia de Stranger Things diciendo que eso era el documento de venta, esa Biblia, ese lookbook, y que al final se hizo, ¿no? Es un caso para que podáis considerar. A continuación ha vuelto a comentar lo que ha dicho en varias ocasiones, y es si de entre las personas que quedan aquí alguna persona ha remitido un proyecto con las características que él comentaba, un proyecto potencialmente posible para ser producido en lengua inglesa y, digamos, al cual le pudiera aportar los elementos de valor de lo que él ha venido llamando en estos días el paquete de proyecto, digamos, con una perspectiva de director, con una estimación de presupuesto, con un logline. Y entonces él está encantado de que quien quiera hacer la propuesta de proyecto pueda salir aquí, plantearla, explicar cómo sería su posible proyecto y él dar el feedback en función de lo que él ha estado comentando. Entonces, ¿hay alguien que quiera...?
Don't be shy. I mean, it's just really for conversation purposes. We should come up with, you know, something to discuss. And you know, it would be good if you said if we could get back on the internet.
Yeah.
So if we want to look at IMDb or box office, anyone?
¿Os anima a que no seáis...?
I thought before the break, I spoke with a couple of people who had an idea. No?
You know what happens with ideas, don't you?
Yeah, what happens? They go away?
Yeah, continuously.
Nada? Okay.
But didn't know actually that we had to do a feature film.
Right. So have you turned it into a feature film in the last 30 minutes? So let's just, okay, who had the Sam Rockwell? Wasn't someone, we were talking about Sam Rockwell? Yeah, what happened to you? You got quiet all of a sudden? Maybe we should give, what?
He wants to be the director.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Hola, Íñigo, por favor, silencio.
Go ahead.
Bueno, my idea was about the horror film about one man that has sporadic blindness, and I had like in the cast it would be nice to be Sam Rockwell or the other one I don't know.
Okay. And a director?
The director I don't know, o sea, because I write the idea because I want to direct me in a future adult or
Right.
when I am an adult.
And did you think of a budget number?
I look, as you say, yesterday into films that are from the same genre, and I look like Halloween or is The Thing, I think, and it was like $10 million. But I think if I made in Spain, I could be less money.
Right. So I'm not in a position really to talk about the Spanish film industry. So let's just, so here's where we could start. You know, so let's look, so Sam Rockwell, you know, let's see what he's been up to. I mean, obviously, he's been up to winning an Academy Award last year. So his price just went up. But, you know, he's also the kind of actor that he would do all sorts of movies. I mean, look at these films that he's made, and I wish this, I know this is good for you, but bad for me, in terms of the Spanish names. So, obviously, I can read that. That's Three Billboards, isn't it? The film that he won his Academy Award for. But, you know, if you look at these movies, you can see that it's not like he's been Mr. Blockbuster. He's not, who plays Iron, he's not Robert Downey Jr. So let's give you the benefit of the doubt that Sam Rockwell will star in this $10 million movie. But then you have to come up with a director. You know, so what I had mentioned, what I had suggested before the break, when we were discussing this during the break, is that there are different strategies that you can use in order to get fairly well-known actors to work in lower-budgeted films. Do you wanna...
Hay diferentes estrategias. Era algo que parece ser que estaba comentando contigo un poco antes de la pausa. Hay diferentes estrategias que puedes poner en marcha si lo que pretendes es, digamos, involucrar a actores muy conocidos en películas de bajo presupuesto, que era lo que tú de alguna manera le estabas planteando, que en el ámbito de la producción española tu película sería una película de más bajo presupuesto que esos $10 millones de los que hablabas si pensabas en el mercado norteamericano. Él lo que plantea es, hay diferentes estrategias para involucrar a actores conocidos en películas de bajo presupuesto.
So, I've gone to an obvious, you know, choice for just this discussion. So, what is Mr. Amenabar up to these days? So, I don't know the name, I don't know the English, I don't know the Spanish name, but does anyone know this movie? He's in post-production. Do you know what this is? Do you know? What? You're in it. Okay. That's cool. Who else is in it? Any?
¿Alguien
Let's-
más involucrado en esa película? Está preguntando.
So it's a Spanish language film? Are you his representative? He doesn't talk? Are you his agent? Well, it looks like a Spanish language film. So, you know, what you would do, for just just for this conversation, so let's say, you know, Amenabar, you know, he had some success on the international stage. He made his English language, what was it? Wasn't it The Other?
Regresión.
Which one is that here? Regression?
Daniel.
This one? This was the English language remake of his Spanish film, right? So this was not a huge hit, you know.
No, but you are talking about Vanilla Sky. Vanilla Sky was the English language remake of one of his first films. I would say that you are talking about Vanilla Sky.
Right, where is that here?
But Vanilla Sky, I'm not so sure. Abre los Ojos was the original version of the movie that you are talking about.
Did he not direct it?
No.
He didn't do the remake?
No, I would say that Vanilla Sky was directed by, I can't remember exactly. Sorry? Cameron Crowe was the director of
Cameron
Vanilla
Crowe.
Sky, yes.
Anyway, so this was his thing. So just for our conversation, so let's say you get Amenabar directing Sam Rockwell. So that's a strategy because there will be actors like a Sam Rockwell who normally at this stage of his career is not maybe making $10 million movies. But if you say, yeah, but it's Amenabar, you know, who does have a reputation, and is the kind of director that I think actors want to work with. So Sam Rockwell knows in order to work with Amenabar, he's not getting a huge, big salary like he's making a Star Wars movie or whatever, you know, big movie Sam Rockwell may be involved with now or not, because he's funny, Sam Rockwell. You know, he's not like a mega star. So that could be a package. Let's just say that's the package. It's a $10 million horror movie directed by Amenabar. So right away, that's kind of interesting, right? And it's Sam Rockwell. It's Academy Award winner, Sam Rockwell. Now the question is, as I said yesterday, does this package make sense? If you're now, forget the directing career, you're now a producer, and you put this project together, and this is the package. What do we think? Does this package make sense? Is he going to be able to raise $10 million with this package? And if yes, that's going to be on the basis that he's going to be able to convince investors that they're going to get their money back. At $10 million, does Amenabar directing Sam Rockwell in a horror film stand a chance at getting to $20 to $30 million at the North American box office? What do you think?
Entonces, bueno, básicamente para resumirlo, la cuestión es darle la vuelta a tu planteamiento para que te lo plantees como productor, para que veas cómo montar el proyecto con, olvidando de que tú dirigieras, pensando, bueno, voy a poder darle sentido a un paquete de una película que la dirige Amenabar con Sam Rockwell de protagonista, una película de $10 millones que en base a lo que nos contaba ayer, solamente en el mercado de Estados Unidos esa película tendría que recaudar entre 20 y 30 millones de dólares. Y la pregunta que tiene que hacerse el productor es si este proyecto, este empaque del proyecto tiene sentido.
What do you think?
¿Qué creéis?
Nobody thinks anything. Anyone?
He wouldn't make it.
What?
He wouldn't make it.
Why do you say that?
Because it's not that famous, I think. Because, for example, you have another Spanish director, that's Bayona, and he's making, for example, the last Jurassic World movie. And it's
The last which?
Jurassic World.
Okay, so ooh, that's an interesting comment, and it's good for this discussion, which is what we're really doing when we're evaluating this package is you're looking at where is the value in the package, who's selling tickets, what, who's selling the tickets here. So if you're saying that Sam Rockwell, okay, so he's not like a big major movie star. He's not selling tickets. But he is now Academy Award winner, Sam Rockwell. And he probably does bring some value, even just putting on the poster. Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell is probably, that brings some value to the package. Not as much value as if it was Bradley Cooper. And that's the kind of game that the exercise that you can play is you swap out one element, and if you swap another one in, what does it do to the package? So let's stick with our friend Sam Rockwell for a moment, but follow your suggestion and say, adios Amenabar, hello Bayona. What does that do to the package? I don't know if it means that much. I think you know that Bayona is doing Jurassic World, whatever. But if you think about the mass movie-going audience, they don't know who directs these Marvel movies or Star Wars movies. I don't think they care.
No, but if you say the director of,
I'm not so sure. Maybe. So maybe Bayona brings a little bit more, but not much. I don't think it's that much. I don't think that all of a sudden is going to make, remember our discussion about finance. So think about, pre-sales. Is the fact that you're saying adios Amenabar and, hello Bayona going to make a Japanese distributor come in on a pre-sale? Maybe, I don't know. It's questionable. It's not, as we would say, it's not a slam dunk. It's not for sure. But if you say goodbye, Sam Rockwell, hello, Bradley Cooper, what does that do? Maybe then people in Japan get a little more excited, or people in France or Germany. So that's really what this is about. There's no right or wrong here. You don't know until you go to the marketplace, you try to raise the money. But that's the exercise. You're looking at what is the value in the package. And if you swap out certain elements, does that increase the value of the package or not, as the case may be? So someone else had a project? Wasn't someone else? Who had the Isabel, what's her name, clock set? Corset? How do you say her name? The director, can you tell him so he can tell me? I know, but could you just say the name?
Es que no había entendido qué estaba preguntando. ¿Qué ha preguntado? Ah, no lo sé, es que no lo sé.
You don't know this director? No. Okay. Anyway, that's really the exercise.
Un momentito, porque ya terminamos. Lo que Neal comenta para cerrar es que realmente el ejercicio es este. El ejercicio es ver el proyecto, digamos, viendo qué elementos puedo sacar fuera del proyecto para cambiarlos por otro que le aporten más o menos valor.
What did you say? Oh, okay. Could we go back? You know what I would like to do is I would love to talk a little bit about the producing program at New York Film. Could you go back to the, you know what I thought would be good, just to wrap it all up, is I thought it would be good just to tell you a little bit of what I do when I'm not sitting in Madrid, as much as I love Madrid. But we do teach producing at the New York Film Academy. And, you know, what I've been talking about primarily for the last 2 days, if it's of interest, you know, you should feel free to reach out to me, and you may want to pursue your producing education. And we have a very intensive program in New York that I think, just to kind of give you an idea of what it's like, this is actually, the slides have been from a PowerPoint that I show prospective students. So we're all about giving practical and pragmatic information, skills, and tools, I think probably in keeping with the spirit of the current school that you're in.
Vale, básicamente lo que está haciendo es, para terminar, daros un poco una perspectiva general de lo que él, digamos, de lo que él hace en New York Film Academy, llevando adelante el departamento de producción. Y dice que, bueno, que él tiene una filosofía y una perspectiva similar a cosas que estamos haciendo aquí en la escuela en la que vosotros estáis.
Because we're preparing people to actually work in the industry. We want to make sure that, people have the skills, the tools to actually get a job and work in the industry in various capacities, not just as producer.
Porque están enseñando y entrenando a los estudiantes para desarrollar las habilidades que necesitan para entrar al mercado laboral en distintos ámbitos creativos, no necesariamente solo en el ámbito de la producción.
So one of the best ways to learn is to apply what you're learning. So students in our program make 4 projects over the course of we call it a one-year program. It's really 8 months in duration. First quarter, students write and direct their own 5-minute short film. They go on to create reality TV sizzle reel, which is like a 5-7 minute sample of a reality or unscripted television show. Students make web series episodes, and they make commercials as well.
Entonces, en el caso concreto del programa de producción, que es del que él habla, a lo largo de un curso de un año, que realmente son 8 meses, el estudiante hace 4 tipos distintos de prácticas, desde un cortometraje muy sencillo, mudo, pasando por un formato, un teaser trailer, un formato de telerrealidad, y terminando por una webserie.
So the cool thing about the producing program is that it's almost like 2 programs in one. You learn producing, but you also learn filmmaking. So in terms of producing, there are all these producing classes that run the entire length of the program. So, for example, Producer Craft is the course that I teach. And it's pretty much what you got today and yesterday was like a very compressed version of what I would do over 28 weeks, looking at every phase of the producing process, kind of what I did with you, but much more detail and much more time.
Entonces, digamos que, bueno, lo que sería la parte de profesión de productor, que sería la parte que él explica y de la cual vosotros habéis tenido, digamos, una versión condensada, una versión muy reducida que él imparte allí a lo largo de 28 semanas y en las que se detalla muchísimo lo que es, digamos, la profesión de productor, qué hace un productor y qué papeles juega en la industria.
Another course is students create a thesis project where you develop and you are working with a writer in the case of a narrative project, or you could be creating your own materials for a documentary feature film. And this is where over 8 months, you create a real package. So there's a script that you've been working with a writer. We don't have our students write their own scripts because as a producer, you need to learn how to work with a writer. So there are all these package elements, as I spoke about, that the students create, from a screenplay to a finance plan, marketing plan, distribution plan, schedule, budget, lookbook.
Hay otro módulo, otro curso, que sería digamos, el del trabajo de tesis desde el punto de vista de productor, en el cual el alumno crea toda la documentación para un proyecto, tal y como Neal os la ha estado resumiendo, esto que tantas veces él ha utilizado a lo largo de estos 2 días, que es, digamos, el package del proyecto. Se trabaja con guionistas creando lo que es el tratamiento, el guión, el libro de estilo, todas las herramientas que habéis estado viendo estos días para crear el paquete del proyecto.
Students get a lot of classes in pitching, pitching is really important. Pitching is when you go in front of someone, maybe a financier or a studio or network executive, and they say, yeah, okay, I have 10 minutes. Tell me about your project. Well, you need to really be able to nail that project in 10 minutes. So over 8 months, students develop their pitching skills, and this culminates in an industry pitch fest, where we have industry professionals come in and the students pitch their projects directly to industry professionals.
A los alumnos, a los estudiantes se les entrena, también se les instruye en las técnicas de pitching, que bueno, como sabéis, es una de las herramientas fundamentales que tenemos a la hora de ir a intentar colocar nuestro proyecto, el proyecto que sea, porque lo que tenemos es la oportunidad de hablar delante de una audiencia con un tiempo limitado y tenemos que ser capaces de lanzar, de ahí viene el que utilicemos incluso el término anglosajón pitching, no de lanzamiento. Tenemos que ser capaces de lanzar nuestro producto desde un punto de vista de mercado, desde un punto de vista de que la audiencia que tenemos son financieros, son gente que va a invertir dinero en el proyecto y tenemos que desarrollar las habilidades para ser capaces de colocar el mensaje.
A whole bunch of classes in line producing. Remember, that's the production management. So students learn movie magic budgeting, movie magic scheduling. It's the software that is the industry standard for budgeting and scheduling.
Tienen cursos también de jefatura de producción, donde los estudiantes trabajan con herramientas como Movie Magic, por ejemplo, ¿vale? Movie Magic es un software de Entertainment Partners que tiene versiones para hacer planes de rodaje, para hacer presupuestos también, y se enseña a los estudiantes las técnicas para manejar esos software.
A whole bunch of classes in entertainment laws. I mentioned yesterday, I believe I mentioned yesterday, you know, as a producer, we have to work with the lawyers. There's a lot of legal aspect of what we do as producers. We're employers, we have to have a company, we hire all these people. Everyone has a contract who comes to work on a film. All the money has a contract, all the distribution contract, it's contract. So you have to be able to understand what's going on, even though you're not the lawyer. So we get give a bunch of classes in entertainment law, and we have some terrific film lawyers who come in and teach these classes.
Hay también clases y cursos relacionados con legislación de audiovisual, legislación del entretenimiento, lo llaman, porque como os comentaba ayer, como futuros productores tenemos que ser capaces, aunque no seamos personas que no seamos abogados, tenemos que ser capaces de entender los términos legales y tenemos que ser capaces de entender los contratos que continuamente estamos firmando.
And then we have a whole bunch of classes that are exclusively about television, including the creation of a series Bible, which takes half the year, two quarters, so it's 16 weeks, where every student comes up and creates their own television series Bible, not unlike what we just looked at in terms of Stranger Things. Every student comes up with their own idea and creates their own TV series Bible. We also have two small television studios, which it's a different workflow when you're doing what we call multi-camera television production, where there will be like 3 cameras in a stage, shooting the actors doing the scene, and this is where the television director is in a control room, you know, away from the actual actors. So a whole bunch of classes in that kind of production, and it's a different type of workflow.
Tienen cursos también de producción de televisión, donde se contemplan distintos aspectos, como por ejemplo el hecho de que los estudiantes desarrollan su propia Biblia para un proyecto de una serie de televisión, y también algo que conocéis de la escuela, que es, digamos, el workflow, la mecánica de trabajo, que es distinto en lo que es la realización de televisión multicámara. Tienen 2 estudios de televisión con, digamos, con una configuración para trabajar con multicámara.
Do you have?
Yes, we have one of them.
So then students also get all these classes in filmmaking, because we strongly believe that if you're a producer, you need to understand what the cinematographer does, what the editor does, what the director does, what the screenwriter does. So there are a whole bunch of classes in cinematography, editing, sound, directing, acting, screenwriting, a lot of screenwriting classes. Some of these have additional production workshops. And you also have to remember that students are shooting their own projects. So those short film, the commercials, the web series, students are shooting their own projects. They're editing them, they're doing the sound, they're directing, etc. So again, the whole philosophy is that you want to apply what you're learning to specific projects, and that's really how you learn. And then there are more classes, additional classes in film finance. We have experts, industry experts, who will come in and just teach these specific classes. Film finance, marketing and distribution. I have a great distributor, has been a distributor for 30 years, teaching these classes now. Case studies is, again, producers talking about their projects, their careers. Film analysis is kind of like cinema studies. Additional classes in documentary filmmaking, festival strategies. We have a bunch of people from the industry coming in all the time, a bunch of famous people who come in and speak to our students. Our students get to produce the filmmakers' thesis projects. That's the directing program. So our producing students can produce the director's bigger projects. These are more like 20, 30-minute films. They're shooting on the red, scarlet camera, etc.
Bueno, ha resumido que tienen también cursos que tienen que ver con todas las profesiones del audiovisual, porque como productores tenemos que ser capaces de conocer el resto de profesiones que hay, y además otra serie de cursos especializados que tienen que ver con marketing, con distribución, con todos los aspectos de la producción audiovisual que Neal ha estado comentando a lo largo de estos 2 días y que en algunos casos son impartidos por profesores invitados, como por ejemplo en este caso algo parecido a lo que ha pasado con Neal con la colaboración de vuestra escuela, ¿no? Bueno, gran cantidad de cursos.
And then there's an internship component. So in the last quarter, the last 2 months of the program, students are not in classes for 2 days every week. They're at their internship. So you get real-world experience working in the industry. We teach classes how to find. Obviously, this is all in advance of finding a job, but finding an internship, putting your CV together. And we've had people intern all over the place in terms of movie studios, television networks, production companies, important producers, etc.
Otro valor importante que es, digamos, la parte de lo que serían las prácticas en empresa. Durante una parte del programa, una serie de días a la semana, las clases no tienen lugar en la escuela, sino que tienen lugar, digamos, como parte del programa de prácticas que la escuela tiene con productoras y con broadcasters.
And we're very proud. The vast majority of our students, when they finish, work in the industry. And they, again, work all over the place at movie studios, television networks, production companies, etc., including, you weren't here, but in the afternoon yesterday, we have a graduate from Madrid. Her name is Irena, who only graduated from this program maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and she's very successfully working. She's back here in Madrid. This is where she's from. She's working with 2 production companies, one that's based in New York and uses her because they make a lot of programming for Telemundo. So she's kind of their person in Spain organizing all of these productions. She also works with a commercials production company here, and she's been having a lot of success she produced one of the filmmakers, New York Film Academy directors, short film. She's been going all over the world. It's been getting a lot of film festival awards and play, and she's working on a new documentary. That the short film was at the Cannes Film Festival Short Film Corner in May, and they won a prize that enabled her to pitch the new documentary to all of these funders, etc. So we're very proud of the fact that, we're basically about getting people ready to work in the industry. So if you're interested, we also do 4-week programs. You can only come to New York for a month. We do 8-week programs, but you really want to come for the whole full program. And you can get a degree. You can go on to our Los Angeles campus and finish a master's degree if you want, which is really cool because then you can do the New York thing as well as the Los Angeles thing. I just wanted to kind of give you an indication. I see most of my business cards are gone, but I would really encourage you, if whether it's about the school programs or anything that we spoke about today, if you have further questions, really don't hold back and send me an email. I would like nothing more than to hear from you. And I want to say thanks for coming. And I hope when you think about the very beginning yesterday, well, not the very beginning, but when I said, what does a producer do, that maybe you have a slightly fuller understanding of an answer to that question. I hope so. But in any event, good luck with everything, and thanks. Gracias.